you went under the wheels.
Welcome to Under the Wheels. I'm Matthew.
I'm Gabe.
And in today's episode, we've got a trifecta of movies to go over.
None of which are trifecta.
None of which are the trifecta. No? No, none of which are. You will not see a triple feature of these movies, The Lighthouse, The King, and Parasite. Maybe two of the three.
I was more making a joke that only you and I and some people we went to college with would understand.
Yeah, I kind of got that. I was like, wait a second, is this that in of a joke where
it's that in of a joke?
It's so far in I could make an Inception joke here and it would be probably in bad taste, but it's a pretty in joke. But the movies we're going to talk about: Lighthouse, The King, and Paris. Well, I guess The Lighthouse, right? It's The Lighthouse, The King, and then Parasite. So close. Always 2 out of 3. So before we get started on that, what have you been watching this week, sir?
Jesus. Well, I've been trying to do some catching up on like classic movies that I feel like I should see. So I watched Sex, Lies, and Videotape.
Nice.
Which, it's interesting because I know when that movie came out, like, I mean, it set the world on fire. Like, it was a huge deal. But watching it now, it's a very 80s drama, if that makes sense. Like, it feels very of its time.
In what way? In the way of, like, everyone's sleeping with each other? Everyone's sleeping around on each other?
Well, everyone's sleeping around on each other. It's all, like, kind of weird, damaged characters who hide behind a veneer of like professionalism and
or politeness.
Or politeness, yeah. And it's all like not much happens. It's a lot of just talking, but it's like very well shot and directed, and the performances are really good. And there's usually like the climax of the movie is a really long dialogue scene between two people where they talk for what is portrayed as several hours. Which have you seen Paris, Texas?
I have not.
So Paris, Texas is a masterpiece, and interestingly enough, Sex, Lies, and Videotape, if you were to take the most abstract possible view of its structure, talking about like the machinery of how the movie works, it's almost identical.
Really?
Yeah, especially the ending, because the end is literally just two people talk for like hours and hours and hours at a time, and the conversation encompasses the subject matter of the entire movie and resolves all of the plot questions. So it's interesting.
In both of them?
In both of them, yes.
Okay.
Then I watched Taxi Driver. Now, I'd seen Taxi Driver when I was a kid and was way too young to understand what the fuck was going on. So, I had some pretty scattershot impressions of it, but rewatching it, holy fuck, that movie's amazing.
It is really good.
It might be a perfect movie. And it's weird, too, watching it shortly after our discussion on Joker. It's crazy how much Joker rips from Taxi Driver, and also just how much better Taxi Driver is.
So I agree with you that Taxi Driver is better. I have been just trying to figure out why people think that Joker is like Taxi Driver, if only because a lot of the common elements that people associate with Taxi Driver at this point have sort of saturated media to the point where like I can't really tell what specifically they're talking about. Because if they're talking about the damaged guy, sort of like a loner going about doing his thing.
The mentally a loner in a society that abandons him and treats him like trash.
Yeah, I mean, but like I guess that's Taxi Driver, but at the same time, like society doesn't really treat Travis Bickle like trash. He just feels like he's in a trash society constantly, and he hates where he lives.
Yeah, like, well, I mean, there's a lot of, I think, superficial similarities. I mean, like, Joker has the garbage strike, and Gotham is, like, really dirty, and there's crap everywhere. And then Travis goes on all of these monologues about, it's like, oh, this filthy city, someone's got to clean it up. Obviously, he's talking about literally just garbage and litter, but it's also, he's referring to subgroups of people that he is prejudiced against.
Right.
Like, there's even, like, the scene where Joker goes to his therapist and, like, oh, you don't listen, all I have are negative thoughts, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
That's the scene where a well-intentioned person has an opportunity to help the main character and they don't, thus leaving them to go down the path of violence or whatever. So Taxi Driver has an identical scene where Robert De Niro talks to the wizard, who's like the older cabbie with like the long hair.
Yeah, Ray Romano's dad.
That's Ray Romano's dad?
No, but he is in Everybody Loves Raymond.
Oh, I had no idea. I mean, I never watched that
Oh,
show.
okay. All right.
But it's interesting because, like, in Joker, he's like, you know, you don't get it. All I have are negative thoughts, blah, blah, blah. He tells all these things that we don't get to see, which I complained about in our
Right.
last podcast. But it's interesting with Travis, we see into his mind. Like, we see what his negative thoughts are, which goes a long way in helping to kind of convince you of what he's going through and make his mental state believable. But then also his interaction, like, that scene serves the same purpose as the scene in the Joker narratively, but it's executed so much better. It's executed so much more realistically, where instead of just coming right out and saying, it's like, all I have are negative thoughts, you know, blah, 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 society, blah, 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 I'm sad. Like Travis, he pulls the wizard outside and he's like trying to
Hey man, I've
say
got these
what's
thoughts,
going through his
I
head.
think these things, and I got these thoughts, and
Yeah, he doesn't like know how to phrase it. Yeah, he's like, you know, I've been thinking these things, you know, and it's some stuff that's, you know, it's like it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
yeah.
And then the wizard just kind of like gives him this weird, you know, life goes on sort of non-answer. But it's like, that's like in real life, that's how that kind of shit happens. No one, I don't think, comes out and says like, I'm horribly depressed, help me. They're like, hey, you know, there's this thing. And a lot of the time, because, you know, the person they're talking to doesn't know what the fuck they're saying, they're just like, you know, just go out and have fun. You'll be fine. Which then always has like disastrous consequences.
Right. I agree, though. Taxi Driver is great. And talking about from our last podcast or a couple of podcasts ago, I guess, how Scorsese is always critical of his characters.
Mm-hmm.
Like that moment at the end when he just like, he's driving the taxi and you're like, okay, everything, you know, happily ever after. Maybe Travis is okay, yada, yada, yada. And then it's the rear view mirror and he has that one moment where he glances quickly into it. And it's like...
And you see he's still like violently crazy.
Yep. It doesn't matter that he's painted as a hero now. And the ultimate irony that this like insane murdering killer crazy blah 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 is like touted as a hero is just a huge kind of like it's funnier than anything in the Joker to me. But Taxi Driver is good. I always have a hard time. It's pretty perfect, but I always have a hard time getting through I think the first half of the movie, because it feels like a movie of two halves.
Yeah.
Because the first half focuses on kind of like how he gets into his descent there, and then the second movie is about sort of his relationship with Jodie Foster's character, and then
because Jodie Foster doesn't really show up until the second half.
Right, and it's like it's such an abrupt like boom. So, but it's really good. But I always felt like Scorsese is so much better at pacing these really long, epic life story type things. And something like Taxi Driver, I feel like the pacing is you know, it's kind of like stupid to say like, oh, the pacing is off. But like for a modern audience, it has a very 70s pacing, which makes sense because it came out in the 70s. But like, and as I told you earlier, I mean, Scorsese has had probably the greatest scenes ever in porn theaters, like when he's buying the concessions at in the porn theater. The girl's like, do you want me to get my manager out here? I was like, oh no, oh my god, this is so awkward.
What is it with Scorsese and having porno theaters in his movies?
I can think of Taxi Driver and The Departed. Those are the only two that I can think of that he has him in there. But I mean,
I would, if I had one question to ask him, I'd ask, it's like, okay, so Marvel movies are not cinema, but is like 1970s porn cinema?
On a scale of 1 to 10, what do you give Deep Throat? Does that count as, because that's, you know, Scorsese. So you saw Taxi Driver and Sex, Lies, and Videotape. Both excellent.
I also watched Heaven's Gate.
Yes, yeah.
3.5 hour long director's cut. Or no, 3 hour and 40-minute long director's cut.
Dang, rip Michael Camino.
Dude, that movie is so long, and that is about all I can say.
Have you seen Deer Hunter? Because I have not seen Deer Hunter. So
Deer Hunter's great.
Deer Hunter. So do you think it was like just lightning in a bottle for him? Because Deer Hunter was supposed to be fantastic, and then Heaven's Gate is just sort of an over budget, over long, over prestigious pile of dirt. and shit.
I don't know.
From what I've heard.
It's like, it's interesting because Heaven's Gate, it's a good movie.
Really?
But yeah, it's a good movie. It's just, you can't be almost 4 hours and only be a good movie. Like, you have to be an amazing movie to justify being that long. And, there's a lot of like scenes that go nowhere and like weird indulgent stuff. Like, John Hurt's character serves almost no purpose whatsoever. And it's very clearly trying to say something about like class, the rich and the poor, the American dream, about being a nation of immigrants and all this stuff. But it gets really muddy because it's 3 hours and 40 minutes. And it's one of those things where it's like, like I said, it's a good movie, but because it's so long, you watch it and your brain immediately starts thinking like, okay, how can I make this movie shorter? Like, what can we get rid of? And it's funny, I was reading some reviews of the movie that were like, they were bitching about this one extended like roller skating dance sequence in the middle of the movie.
Okay.
And they're like, yeah, it's weird. But, and they're like, why is this in the movie? What's the purpose of this? And it's like, I'll tell you what the purpose is. That's the best goddamn scene in the entire movie. That's why it's there. There's a whole lot of other shit they could have cut. But goddamn it, they better leave that in.
Is that like the Oscar Isaac dancing in the middle of, or like dancing for no reason scene in Ex Machina?
Dude, yes. It is. It's like, it's very like There Will Be Blood-ish, where, the filmmaking from a technical standpoint is good, but pretty boilerplate for most of the film. But in that one scene, it seems like Michael Cimino wants to get like really fancy with his camera work and his staging and his editing and everything. And it's all so cool, Like, the pointless roller skating dance sequence in the middle of the movie is the best part of the movie.
We should, as a quick aside, we should say though that we have a personal love in this podcast and on our site for pointless dance scenes by excellent actors done by amazing filmmakers.
Mm-hmm. The best single part of that dance scene is there's a really minor character who pops up from time to time. And, at this roller rink, he's the violinist in the band. And so he starts off this little gathering of people where he starts playing this violin, like, very fast and with a lot of, like, technical proficiency. And then as he's doing it, like, he hops up to his feet and starts rolling, like, skating around the building. And, like, everyone's kind of clapping and cheering for him. And then the camera just follows him around the room, and it's really smooth. And you feel like you're on roller skates flying around the room with him, and everyone's really happy, and it communicates really well. And so yeah, it's a great little bit, but it's like, yeah, I just couldn't help but think, like, why is John Hurt in this movie? I mean, he's always fun, but he doesn't do anything. He just stands around and kind of blathers. There's a lot of like I think they could have saved some money on extras, because there's a lot of scenes where there's so many extras walking around and like pretending to be townspeople. It creates all this crowd noise to the point where you can't hear what the main characters are saying. And that gets pretty annoying when you have like Chris Christopherson having a conversation with this other guy who has like a really thick fake Irish accent, and you can't hear either of them because all you hear are like the bustle of all these extras and carts and trains and shit moving around in the background.
That sounds like a sound mix problem. Who were the main actors that they were getting to draw people into this movie?
So the main cast, it's Chris Christopherson, and who's the chick who was in that one Paul Verhoeven movie that got really big like last year? Oh, Isabelle Huppert. She's the love interest. John Hurt's in it. Christopher Walken is in it. Very young, very emaciated Christopher Walken. Sam Waterston is the bad guy.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Sam Waterston's really good too. Like he plays a really good villain.
Yeah, he's a good villain.
Jeff Bridges is like a side character.
What?
Yeah, he's like a local businessman. Tom Noonan is in there for 10 seconds. Mickey Rourke is in it for like 10 seconds.
Mickey Rourke. What year did it come out? Was that like 82 or something?
1980.
Okay.
And then Willem Dafoe is an extra in one shot, where he's like standing there like super young, just glowering over Chris Christopherson's shoulder, and that's the only shot of the movie he's in.
So they didn't really have any big name draw to this movie aside from the director of Deer Hunter.
Well, I mean, Christopher Walken was a big draw. Remember, he was in Deer Hunter. He was in Annie Hall, which was a huge hit.
Yeah, but in both of those, he was like a side character. He wasn't the main. Like Deer Hunter's
he's
main draw.
He's kind of the main character in Deer Hunter.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say because they
Um,
promoted the shit out of Robert De Niro in Deer Hunter, so I figured that De Niro's the main character. Well, one of
Yeah, and
three, I guess.
I think the other thing you have to keep in mind is Chris Christopherson was huge at that time. Like he was in Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. Like he's so popular. He is a pop culture reference in Taxi Driver.
Well, he was a pop culture reference in Taxi Driver because of Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore.
You sure about that?
I'm pretty sure because he and
I'll take your word for it.
I'm gonna say it is because he and Scorsese hit it off like super hardcore when they were making Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. It's like, yeah.
He also won a Golden Globe for Best Actor for A Star Is Born 4 years prior.
Oh, okay. I mean, I still don't. Maybe he's like the Chris Pratt of our generation, where like I just don't see it because he didn't. Chris Christopherson kind of made it out of the '80s, but didn't really. Like he was in Blade, but aside from Blade, he's kind of just like a side character in a bunch of movies. So it just doesn't seem like Heaven's Gate, in addition to all of the problems and all of the little leaks that the studio behind it was putting out to like the press about how Michael Cimino was like, he made his crew wait for like 8 hours just so that a cloud would be in the perfect location before shooting. You know, all of the nightmare stuff you hear about. Yeah, it seems like they didn't have any big name to draw them in. Like Heaven's Gate,
and there are some really pretty shots in the movie.
That's what I hear. I hear it's shot gorgeous. It's like a brilliantly shot movie.
It's just the problem is there aren't enough. Like there's some really pretty shots, and then there's a lot of shots that are like really boring and overlit.
Yeah. We have to get the perfect shot. Okay, and then we still have to do everyone's coverage. Just set up 2 tripods. It's fine. Just set up 2 tripods.
Exactly.
Whenever I think of The Revenant, I always think of the story behind Heaven's Gate. So that's why I'm amazed that The Revenant did so well when Heaven's Gate just completely collapsed on itself. And even to an extent, Apocalypse Now was just a major headache for the studio, major cost overruns and stuff.
Yeah, but that's the best movie ever.
Right,
so,
exactly. Yeah.
I'll allow it.
So I guess it's like 2 for 3 then.
Yeah.
Well, except there's 1942, which was a huge Spielberg bust that was similar to Heaven. Anyway.
What have you been watching lately?
I have been watching a lot of movies that have come out recently. So I went to see The Current War, which...
The Current War Director's Cut, which is a re-release of a movie from like 2 years ago.
Wait, are you serious? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
The one with Tom Holland? And it was released 2 years ago?
Yep. It was released 2 years ago. It was so bad that they buried the movie, and now they're re-releasing it as a director's cut.
The one with Michael Shannon?
Yep.
What the...
And Benedict
Cumberbatch, Michael Shannon, and Nicholas Hoult as Nikola Tesla.
Yeah. The Current War is a 2017 American historical drama film that depicts the War of the Currents between Thomas Edison and George Westinghouse.
Wow.
Originally to be distributed by the Weinstein Company in November 2017, the film was shelved and sold following the sexual abuse allegations against Harvey Weinstein.
Of
It
course.
was eventually bought by Lantern Entertainment, who then sold domestic distribution rights to 101 Studios. After discovering a final cut privilege clause in Scorsese's contract. What the fuck does Scorsese have to do with it?
He's an executive producer on the movie.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, after discovering a final cut privilege clause in his contract, the director convinced him to allow for reshoots and to trim 10 minutes off the original's runtime, resulting in the film that was released in theaters October 25th, 2019.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
This is one of those movies
Crazy
where the
shit.
story behind the movie is more interesting than the movie itself.
Oh, yeah. So how was it?
It was okay.
Mm.
It's fine. You can skip it. It's from a
All
technical...
that behind-the-scenes fuckery sounds a lot more interesting than the actual story.
It is. The score is great. I really like the music in the movie. The camera work I like as well, but it's almost like they took a stuffy British drama and they went full MTV on it. Like, the characters all have title cards when they come on the first time. Like, Thomas Edison comes on and you see, boom, Thomas Edison, inventor, asshole.
Really?
They don't say asshole, but they have they do the thing with like inventor, and they like, just in case you can't pick up who these characters are in the story itself, which is, as a person watching a movie, is kind of insulting to me. But since they do that with every single character, I can't take too much fault in it. Every major character, like they'll introduce JP Morgan, and he's got like this brilliant red nose on him. It's like, JP Morgan, investor, capitalist, blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, okay. But I've come to see Edison as more of like an opportunistic, not necessarily like an inventor, but more of like an opportunistic person who...
Businessman?
Yeah, who, you know, his main goal was to get as many patents under his name and then promote himself as an inventor of all of these things. So everything was like, you know, I'm not switching on a light bulb. I'm switching on the Thomas Edison light bulb with the Thomas Edison filament and the Thomas Edison.
Yeah.
So...
Well, the other thing, he kind of invented the modern research laboratory where like like he had a bunch of people working for him, but all of their creative output, the legal rights
reverted to
belonged
him. They actually did touch on that when Nikola Tesla's hired on. They touched on that. It's sort of like a glossing over of all of the faults of any of these characters.
Oh,
they kind of touch on them a little bit. Like, I don't know anything about Westinghouse, but they make Westinghouse look like a saint. Yeah. And like, go ahead.
Movies that take place during the Gilded Age should accurately portray the time as being horrible and all of the prominent people within it as being total bastards. Which is the only correct way to do that time period.
No, too many people love the Robert Zemeckis glossy past look at life and like to skip out on the chamber pots. Well, we're also biased because like after watching Lighthouse, any other period piece pales in comparison between The Witch and Lighthouse. But Current War, it was kind of like how the King's Speech was all harsh lighting, awkward angles, super wide lenses. The Current War kind of takes that and dials it up to 11. So I really enjoyed that part of it.
I want to make a stuffy British period drama, but it's shot and edited like 1990s MTV with like those title cards that have cartoon graphics inside the letters, you know?
Yeah.
And like all the crazy canted angles and like whoa type
whoa
shit.
Dude, all of the handheld push-ins and pull-outs all the time.
And everyone like just looks and sounds like a skater.
Oh my god, that'd be horrible. Everything's cranked up to it, like all of the saturate, everything's oversaturated. Everyone's skin looks like a freaking lemon.
Dude, yes. And it'll be about like Winston Churchill or something.
Just reshoot The Darkest Hour MTV style.
Exactly.
Then you have like a random sex scene between Winston Churchill and like 3 other women, and you're like, oh my god. I mean, we're gonna give the makeup award to this guy because look at fat flabs flapping in the wind like that. But still, there's certain things that I never need to see in cinema.
Winston Churchill doing a kickflip.
He comes in on a Razor scooter.
And hits himself in the ankle.
There's a fight on the street, and all of a sudden, like, Winston Churchill pulls out, like, an AK-47 and guns down all the Nazis. Actually,
hell yeah.
Every time I see the trailer for the Harriet Tubman movie, I always secretly hope that it's some sort of, like, completely historically inaccurate Quentin Tarantino-style revisionist history of her just as, like, she escapes out of the slave area in Maryland, goes up north, and then just, like, gets a machine gun and turns into John Rambo, or, like, turns into John McClane, and just like totally inaccurate movie of like Harriet Tubman, like a female slave freeing badass or something. Just why Harriet the hell Tubman, not?
Redemption.
Exactly. Like random over the top, like Atomic Blonde mixed with historical accuracy.
You know how there was that whole thing where they were taking like historical figures or like
Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter
characters, not necessarily Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter or Franklin Roosevelt Werewolf Hunter, which is a movie. I was thinking more like the Ridley Scott Robin Hood or the fucking Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels King Arthur movie.
Yeah.
Like taking these guys and giving them like a superhero style origin movie that makes no sense.
Yeah. That's what I would love to see that as.
They should
Harriet
do that
Tubman.
for Harriet Tubman. Like
that's what I was
Harriet
hoping
Tubman
it would be.
Origins, and then Harriet Tubman Rises or something.
Yeah, that's what I would love to see, like Guy Ritchie do Harriet Tubman, not like physically,
but Tubman Rises.
Harriet Tubman Begins, the slave emancipator.
I'd be down for that.
Like that's what I'm saying. Like it's already not going to be historically accurate. So why not just go full tilt? I especially love the argument on historical fiction or on like biographical movies of like, oh, well, this isn't a documentary. Well, guess what? Documentaries are also taking liberties, but like it's already not.
It's like documentary 101. Documentaries are subjective. That's like the first thing they teach you, and then that's the only thing they teach you, really.
The only thing you really need to know about documentaries. Guess what? A documentary that tells everyone's point of view, not very interesting. A documentary that only tells one point of view, very interesting. And then people
there's
still
a
think
reason
it's
why
true.
Michael Moore has won awards.
Yep.
It's because his documentaries are entertaining, as completely one-sided as they are.
But they should be, as a documentary should be. It should be entertaining and use a lot of
no one's
motion
gonna watch it if
graphics.
it's fucking boring.
I guess there's the other side of the spectrum where people are like, oh yeah, and then there's, I think, because everyone thinks of Ken Burns documentaries as like the gold standard of documentary. Like, this
Oh
is a
god,
documentary.
slowly panning over like an ancient daguerreotype while a stuffy like Smithsonian historian just prattles on about nothing is the opposite of what makes a good documentary.
All narrated by Peter Coyote, and yes, I agree with you. Like the best documentaries I've seen, like the documentary on film editing was done really well, and a lot of it is kind of carried over into special features on Blu-rays and stuff. Like they have a lot of the good technique.
I really like Werner Herzog's style of doing documentaries because he tries to make them like
his features,
like narrative. Yeah, he makes them like his features. He makes them like their narrative movies, and he's more interested in like the poetic nature of filmmaking than he is in giving you the facts of any particular story.
Right.
Which, I mean, I guess, you know, if you go to documentaries for your news or whatever, like some people do, you may not exactly be getting much out of it, but like Grizzly Man is a beautiful film, and I think more documentaries could be done in that sort of style.
Well, I think a lot of the documentaries that win Best Documentary have that sort of beautiful poeticism. Actually, I guess that's not true. A lot of the documentaries that win now are documentaries that are more obscure in nature. They comment on sort of like a niche subject.
Or they're about just wars in the Middle East. That's guaranteed to win you.
That's true. That's true. The socioeconomic situation in the Middle East, as done by an American.
Exactly, as done by Alex Gibney or something. I like Alex Gibney. I know his documentaries are all just about making you feel horrible and talking about how terrible a place the world is, but he's really good.
He's found his niche and he does it well.
He's found his niche, yeah. I mean, he did Taxi to the Dark Side. He did Going Clear, the Scientology one.
Which one's Taxi to the Dark Side?
It's about like this cab driver in, I think, Afghanistan who was mistaken for somebody else by an intelligence group and was kidnapped and assassinated.
Jesus Christ.
But he was just some guy. And the movie's kind of about that story, but also sort of the structural problems within that particular part of the American military and how there wasn't any sort of safeguard in place to prevent something like that from happening.
I also saw Dolomite Is My Name.
Ooh, nice. How was that? How's Eddie Murphy?
He's really good in it. The whole movie's really good.
I'm glad to hear that. I know Eddie Murphy's like a pretty good serious actor. I mean, he can play it straight really well.
He doesn't play it straight in this.
Oh, really?
This is a comedy. It's like but it's one of those. I guess it's really similar. People have made comparisons to Bowfinger because do you know the story behind the Dolomite movie or the character at all?
No.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I know who like Rudy Ray Moore is.
Right.
You know, that everyone says he invented rapping.
Yeah, or he was like the major influence on rap. They don't really go into that so much, but they do touch upon like he created this character who every single line he says rhymes, and he did it as stand-up for a while, and then he wanted to make a movie and everything that goes into making the movie and then premiering the movie, and it's a very Hollywoody story. But this was going back to what I was kind of thinking about a lot of Netflix movies. Even though they have a big budget, maybe it's because I'm not seeing it on a big screen, but it still feels kind of like Netflix has a specific style, and maybe it's because I can't see the Academy aspect ratio or whatever when I'm watching it, but like even there were some parts of Dolomite Is My Name that I was like, it feels like I wouldn't see this in theaters. I don't know why, because
like in a good way or a bad way.
Unfortunately, in like a bad way. Between like maybe kind of like the way it was colored or the way it was shot. No offense when I say colored. I probably cut that part out. But like the way that it was graded, or the way that it was shot, or the way that it was
like
edited,
just cheap.
It doesn't look cheap. Like, it looks better than a regular television movie. It looks maybe a little bit better than an HBO movie, but it doesn't look the quality of like a big budget movie. And
well, I wonder if, I mean, some of these movies do get decent sized budgets. I just wonder if Netflix kind of has a tendency to put all their eggs in one or two baskets, because it's like Beast of No Nation looks fantastic, Buster Scruggs looks fantastic, Roma, boring as it is, looks great.
Well, and this one might actually look fantastic, and I might just be prejudiced against the again, I don't mean it like that. I might be like watching it from the Netflix perspective. I might be watching it when I'm looking at like Netflix movie or Netflix media. I worry that it's going to start having a specific look to me because I've seen some of the romantic comedy Netflix movies that look like they're shot in like 10 days.
Oh my God. I saw this one movie on Netflix called I don't know. I don't remember what it's called, but it's about like these college kids who make a dating app, and it was like supposed to be a rom-com or something.
Yeah.
It looked like it was shot by college students. It's so bad. Like, holy fucking shit. All the performances are terrible. All the dialogue is terrible. Everything is ridiculously overlit. Like, there's no shadows in the entire movie.
No. I'm wondering if maybe your TV is just the gamma's turned up too high. Between that and Heaven's Gate.
If I watch like a good movie, it'll look good. Like I watched The Witch on my TV and it looks amazing.
Oh, fair enough. Well, there was the one movie with Randall Park and Ali Wong that was, again, when I watch it, I'm like, this looks like cinematography looks kind of cheap, editing looks kind of cheap. The actors are doing a great job, and there's a great cameo by Keanu Reeves in there that's maybe a little too long, but like
Swiped is the piece of shit movie I was referring to. But go on.
Wait, what? Slight? SLIGHT?
Swiped.
Oh, Swiped.
SWIPED.
Well, there's definitely a level of Netflix has to. I think they have a scale of budget ranges for their movies because they still come out with quite a lot of original content. Like every month they come out with a new original movie. Some prestigious, a lot of it not. But anyway, Dolomite Is My Name was really good, even if you see it just for Eddie Murphy. But there's like, it's got really solid performances all around. Wesley Snipes is like, he just seems like he's on something the entire movie, which maybe because the actor he's supposed to be is on something the entire movie, but he's freaking hilarious in it. It was good. Dolomite Is My Name. It's a witness for sure.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. All right, should we get into it?
Hell yeah, dude.
All right, man. Let's start with Lighthouse. You posted a review on it, so do you want to start by talking about it, or do you want me to give you my impressions of it?
You go ahead.
Okay. Well, the way that everyone's been asking me like, oh, what's Lighthouse about? And I'm like, well, it's about Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson, and they're stuck in a lighthouse, and they both go crazy. And it's a little bit more nuanced than that, and that's when I go into the whole like they're supposed to be there for 4 weeks, and then a storm hits, and then they both go crazy. So
yes.
That's the nuanced version.
I mean, the movie is so dense with details, you pretty much have to give the most basic summary possible if someone's asking you what it's about. Otherwise, you'll be there for like 3 hours telling them what it's about.
There's tentacles and Poseidon, and you can't kill birds, and so to make a long story short, it's a shiny and chrome for me. I was going back and forth whether it was a witness or a shiny and chrome.
Really?
Yeah, because I came out of it and I was like, that was really, really good. That was at least an 8, but I think I've pushed in my head to a nice shiny and chrome because. So I had a hard time getting through The Witch just because in the middle section my eyes kind of started drooping. I was on too comfortable a couch. The Lighthouse, I was thirsty and hungry the entire no, actually I was tired when I went in to see The Lighthouse, and I kept wanting to go to the concession stand to get some popcorn to keep me awake, but there was no moment in the movie that I thought I could leave because I didn't want to miss any moment, which is the sign of an excellent film. So
and it's also,
go ahead.
I mean, it sucked for me. I mean, I would say it's definitely a shiny and chrome. I was thinking like, is it perfect in every way? But I feel like if I have to think, is it? It's not. Very high shiny and chrome. Loved it. So nice. I saw it twice. However, part of that was out of necessity because, the first time I saw it, there's a scene where Robert Pattinson is kind of revealing his whole backstory. And for that entire scene, the sound just dipped out. And so it was just, I was watching his mouth move and couldn't hear a damn thing. But it was weird because, like, the wind noises were still there.
That is
like
weird.
The background SFX was still there. So I had to go out of the theater, get the manager, be like, hey, theater 6, the sound's busted. So I missed that whole part, and everything referring to that part later in the movie I didn't get. So I was in a bad mood. But
God.
I went to see it again, this time at an AMC, and holy fuck, AMCs are disgusting. They're some of the dirtiest buildings I've ever seen. But the experience was excellent. I was able to watch the whole movie this time, and holy fuck, it's amazing. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those movies where you really can't leave in any part.
There's
Otherwise
no
you're
moment
gonna
you
miss
can
something.
miss. Like
yeah, like I said, it's so dense with details. If you really wanted to explain it to someone, you'd be standing there monologuing for an hour and a half.
Yep.
I was just gonna say, and everything about it is good. But you go on.
So, I mean, I agree with you. Everything about it is good, and I think the thing that's so you posted on underthewheels.wixsite.com/blog a review of The Lighthouse, and the picture that you posted of Willem Dafoe is, when I think of the movie The Lighthouse, that's the face I think of, because that same shot where he's like slightly underlit with his eyes that look like, you know, half circles, staring up at Robert Pattinson as he's telling some insane, good old 19th century or 18th century dialect statements. That is how I picture the movie all the time. Just that look on Willem Dafoe's face. And like, he's fantastic in it, and so is Robert Pattinson. They're both really good in really different ways.
Yeah, well, I think, obviously the movie's beautiful to look at. It's like every shot looks like a fucking painting, like a Caravaggio painting or something. And it's one of those movies where the lighting encompasses the full range of possibilities of the human eye in like every shot. Like there's always some highlight that's blown out to where it's blinding, and then some shadow that's so dark it's impenetrable.
And this was, how much do you know about
and everything in between?
How much do you know about how this was shot? Because I haven't looked it up. Was this shot
I
on
don't
film?
know anything. It was shot on film, I do know that. But yeah, I mean, it's gorgeous to look at. And then Robert Eggers and his brother Max wrote the script, and I think I'd have to say they're some of the best dialogue writers working today, because it's like everything the characters say is so poetic and it's so dense and hard to get through, and the actors do such a great job like chewing through it, especially Willem Dafoe, because everything he says is a poem from another time, and he has to not only say it, but say it with all of the right little emotional notes on every line and every word, and he does it perfectly. Like you watch like Shakespeare movies and everyone says the dialogue correctly without errors, but they don't have any emotion. They're just kind of like staring blankly as they say some soliloquy or whatever. Whereas like the dialogue that Willem Dafoe has to get through is just as difficult, but he's crazy. Like he does every emotion possible as he's saying it. And then Pattinson, yeah, he's very different. He's a lot more modern. He's kind of got that like turn of the century Northeastern kind of way of speaking. And I think it's interesting, to contrast him with Dafoe, where Pattinson's character is very bad with language. Like he doesn't speak in a very pretty way. A lot of his sentiments are very ugly, and they're expressed in a very like ugly sort of stunted fashion. And I always crack up at that bit where, Pattinson is freaking out at Dafoe and calling him a liar and like just hurling all these vile insults at him, but they come out garbled because like Pattinson's character doesn't have a way with language like Dafoe's character does. And Dafoe's response is just like, I have a way with words, don't you? Like, and some of the insults Pattinson says are really amazing. Like, he's talking about how he stinks. He's like, you smell like rotting foreskin, like decaying dick fucked rotten onions or something. Like, it's so funny.
Well, it should be noted, at that moment he's doing that, though, he's like super hungover.
He is, yeah, but it's just, he's very inarticulate for most of the movie.
Yeah. So I was reading about the movie Brick, and there was a moment Rian Johnson was talking about how he had to get everyone speaking the way that people are speaking in that movie, because it's got kind of like a Dashiell Hammett old school way of speaking, I guess, mixed with like Gen X or like, I don't know, like Brick has a very weird speaking style and pattern.
It's like this hyper noir,
yeah, and so
sort of style.
The whole time I'm watching Willem Dafoe in The Lighthouse, I'm thinking he had to have his like old school sailor shanty talk down. He had to have it so that it's coming out as natural as possible. And going back to what you were saying about Robert Eggers and his brother Max's dialogue in it, they're really good at writing really interesting dialogue that sounds like it's from a different century but still makes it feel natural, kind of like how the Coen brothers do it in their westerns. And the details in the movie, so one thing I liked about the movie is that they don't explain everything to you, nor do they feel like they need to. And I'm specifically speaking about the ending, but this is also a movie that's just, it's story-wise just so tight.
Yeah, and it's a movie about confusion and paranoia. So it makes sense that the movie itself is sort of confusing.
A little confusing, paranoid. My favorite moment is when Robert Pattinson comes in and Willem Dafoe's like, you gotta get the rations going, Sonny. He's like, yeah, I know, you told me that yesterday. I said I'd do it tomorrow. Tomorrow? No, I told you about doing that 3 weeks ago. And I was like, oh shit, wait, how long has it been? And then when I hit that moment, I was like, oh man, they're doing a good job right here. Holy cow. They've just completely got me locked in here.
Yeah, I mean, the movie is so good at making you're always in a state of doubt as to what am I watching? Is it real? You know, I noticed that the interior of the light station, and to some extent the exterior, are never shot the same way twice. So they're in the same like set of rooms most of the time, but every new scene in that room, except for the dinner table stuff, looks completely different. So it's like you're always never sure of like where anything is in relation to anything else. And that also kind of feeds into the plot of the movie, which involves a lot of questions over like who has a grip on the reality of the situation. Are these people lying to each other or to themselves? Are they crazy? Like, do they know what they're saying is not true? Do they know that they're contradicting themselves? Like, are they trying to gaslight each other, or are they just confused? And it works really well with kind of Defoe being 100% earnest all the time.
Yes.
Or like seeming 100% earnest all the time. Like he will say something in one scene and then in another scene completely contradict it. Or like he will completely contradict something that just happened. And but he at least comes off like he thinks he's telling the truth. And you don't know, is he crazy? Or is he that good of a liar? Or are we watching the movie from the crazy perspective and he is the one who knows what's happening? Whereas Pattinson plays off that by always being incredulous. Like he's always like, wait, what? Huh? What? The fuck?
Yep. He's always, and we're in, for the most part, like we stick with Pattinson almost the entire time. Therefore, we get his sort of unreliable narrator point of view on what's going on in the events of the movie. Which again, we were talking about it with Joker and how they break from Joker. In this movie, anytime they break from Robert Pattinson's perspective, you're never quite sure if it's a dream, if his mind is wandering, or what. So, because I think they did it one time where they show like Willem Dafoe like masturbating in front of the lighthouse or something, like, or in front of the white light. So, which, speaking of masturbating, it answers the age-old question I've always had of how do you have sex with a mermaid? So that's. Thank you, Robert Eggers. I could put that one. Yeah,
that's one of the things they do not leave to the imagination.
No, not at all. Again, bold choice by probably people who are just starting to listen to us don't know, but like you've become a big post-Twilight fan of Robert Pattinson.
I have. I think Pattinson. There was that big boom of like young adult fantasy books being turned into movies, and a lot of stars were born out of that. But of those many stars, Robert Pattinson is far and away the best actor.
And he's purposefully chosen weird movies or like offbeat movies that you wouldn't, like movies he'd want to do for fun, like Good Time he did for fun. The Rover, something.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's an excellent character actor on the level of like Willem Dafoe, or even like Tom Hardy, where he completely disappears into a very specific and very strange person for every movie. And it's always like, he's always playing people who are not normal. He's never playing like a normal guy in anything, or at least anymore.
I don't know if he ever did with Cedric Diggory in Harry Potter.
Cedric Diggory's like he's like the popular kid at school. He's like the quarterback of the football team,
He'd be the closest, I think, to it, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, his character in this movie's nuts. His character in The King is nuts. His performance in Good Time, it's really out there, but it's amazing. Yeah. His character in The Rover is really strange, but again, excellent, very believable. So yeah, I mean, he's awesome. I've been talking about him for a few years now as being like, Robert Pattinson, he's an amazing actor, totally underrated. He's going to be big.
Give him a good director. And he's smartly chosen, he's been able to choose projects with good directors. Like, he's going to be in Christopher Nolan's movie coming up. So.
Yep. Oh, and speaking of roles where he completely disappears, like in The Lost City of Z.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes a long time to figure out, because I was sitting there in the theater like, is that Robert Pattinson? Is it? I can't tell. Is that him? And then in the credits like Robert Pattinson. I'm like, what the
what the fuck?
Like
That guy with the
he
beard.
completely vanished into that character. Like you could not tell who was playing him.
Nope. Yeah, I forgot to the point where I forgot he was in that. But yeah, he's fantastic in that one too. He's gotten to the point he's lucky that he can choose the directors that he really wants to work with. And luckily he's been choosing really intelligently.
Wisely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Like this was a great choice.
You want to get into spoilers?
Oh God, yes.
All right. So to avoid spoilers, I guess, just skip ahead to whatever timestamp Matt puts over my voice. Creating more work for you.
Yeah, I guess I could do that. Or we could just say, if you're listening to this, you should be ready for. No, I'll put a timestamp in there.
Cool.
Spoilers for The Lighthouse end 1 hour, 12 minutes, and 7 seconds into the podcast.
So yeah, spoilers. Okay, first question. Do you think Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe are the same person?
Ooh, good question.
Because that's been gnawing at me ever
God.
since I first saw the movie.
I'm going to go with the not interesting answer because it didn't even occur to me. My answer is I don't think it's the same person.
Okay.
I think that's too easy of an out for Robert Eggers and his. I feel like that's too easy of an out.
Well, so here's the thing, right? It's a dream movie. Everyone says what? Everyone's like, well, is it a horror movie? Is it a comedy? It's a surrealist movie. It's a dream movie. That's the only genre it fits into neatly. And the thing with surrealist movies is it's kind of like David Lynch said, they're about something that is beyond the capacity of language to make sense of. You just have to subconsciously open yourself up to the experience and you'll get it, or you'll get what you need to get. And I don't know, for me, I was thinking about all the little ins and outs of the movie, because there are so many details in it. Like every dialogue line, every bit of set direction, every little prop, every shot, it's repeated or altered, and it all contributes to the greater whole, which is you said the movie has no fat on it. But I kept thinking, it's are they the same person? Or because it's like Willem Dafoe is always saying that little poem before they eat dinner with something, treble dread, make the ocean waves our bed, and so on. And Robert Pattinson can never say it. But as soon as Pattinson kills Dafoe, he says it perfectly, almost as if he's absorbed him or something. And there's also little bits it's all that stuff when Willem Dafoe runs out with an axe and chops up the boat, and then he accuses Pattinson of chopping up the boat. It's well, if they were the same person, that would be true. Or it's Willem Dafoe predicts his own death in the movie. He says, for a minute there, I was worried you'd split my skull in twain, which is how he dies. He gets his skull split in half, yeah. So I don't know, because I wonder how much of the movie is meant to be. I mean, obviously it doesn't take place in a real world. It takes place in a psychological or mythological realm.
Does it though?
I think so. I mean, because think about it, it's
it makes it more interesting if it does.
Yeah, because it's Pattinson and Willem Dafoe's characters, they don't seem like they could exist in the same era. They both seem Pattinson seems like a guy from the time period the movie is intended to be set in, whereas Willem Dafoe seems out of time entirely. He's not a real sailor. He's some mythological idea of a sailor who talks in flowery, extended poetic monologues. Who, he's got this, no sailor would talk like that. Most sailors are probably too drunk and toothless to talk like that.
It's the Robert Louis Stevenson school of vocabulary.
Exactly, yeah. He's he's got away with words. His vocabulary is so massive. Everything he says is rhymes, or it's alliterative, or it has all these little things that normal people don't say, but poets will say.
Right.
Especially poets from, several hundred years ago who seemed to be getting paid by the word.
Right.
And then, it also a lot of the dreamier parts of the movie, Defoe seems like this kind of mythological authority figure. He's the voice of God, or, the master, and Pattinson is the slave, or he's the mere mortal. Just kind of cowering and trying to reason with an authority, or with kind of the way things are that make no sense to him. So I almost wonder if they are just if
it's an extension of his consciousness projected.
Yeah, if they're one person.
When I was watching it, I thought that Willem Dafoe was basically the god Poseidon, or the god Triton, or whichever
He's the god of the sea.
He's the god of the sea, because they have that one scene where he's like standing on top of Robert Pattinson. It's like a dream sequence where he's standing on top of Robert Pattinson and he's holding the trident in front of him. And so like that was when I was queuing in. And so then when Pattinson goes to kill Willem Dafoe and he's strangling him, and then like it starts morphing into all of those things. The moment that it was Willem Dafoe's sea demon, I was like, oh yeah, okay, so he is the god of it. Oh no, he's dead. Never mind. Maybe he wasn't. I also like to think of it as, because they kind of layered in that Willem Dafoe's character tends to tell tall tales and he goes about lying about things all the time. Oh, don't worry, I'm gonna make sure you're you're doing good work here. I'm going to make sure to give you a good review or whatever. And the entire time he's just writing how he's, a lazy slob and he's horrible and he should be fired.
Recommending severance without pay.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's hard for me to trust anything that he says as a character. And so I'm much more inclined to stick with them being two separate bodies or two separate entities.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like kind of the way that people view God or the gods. It's like, this all-powerful authority who has control over your life, but, works in mysterious ways or makes no sense, or whose motives are completely inscrutable to you, And I think Willem Dafoe's character plays that role very well, where it's like he has total absolute power over Pattinson and over Pattinson's existence, but he makes no sense. Like, his motives make no sense. His decisions make no sense. What makes him angry, what makes him laugh can be the same thing, just at different times. So he's kind of like that, mysterious, capricious authority figure that is as fickle as the sea or as life in general.
Maybe. Yeah, I would agree with that. Someone who's born from the sea to act just as the sea is. I don't know, I always like to think of him as like the guy who's selling, the Sailor Jerry or whatever, who's selling fish to supermarkets now. I'm just staring at that picture from your review and it's just cracking me up. I can't help it. It's like the perfect shot of him. Just God. I was just gonna say, like, his monologue where he's like, Pattinson insults his cooking. And then like he calls upon the god of the sea to like destroy, not only kill Pattinson, but like erase his existence from time itself. And it's like this really long, harsh, violent speech. And then Pattinson's like, all right, have it your way. I like your cooking. It's not that bad. That's great. Going back, I'm going to go back to what I always talk about is technical aspects. Like the fact that they shot the whole movie in black and white and they shot it at a ratio of a 4:3 ratio. I think it helps to add to the legitimacy of the dialogue. Like it feels like a movie out of time and out of place that we kind of just were able to stumble upon. Yeah. With a lot of weird
stylistically, shit. Well, it's interesting to try and, I mean, obviously it's a very unique and original movie, as tempting as it is to try and like pull apart, oh, what is this inspired by? Because the honest answer is it's probably inspired by a million little things that went into Robert Eggers' head and is therefore just his. But I love the way it's done technically as well, because it's so old-fashioned. Like, it mixes kind of that German expressionist silent film look with like the classical Hollywood style of like really smooth camera moves, invisible editing.
And it does.
The only time you ever notice anything is when it goes to like a really expressionistic like German angle,
And it does that to punctuate it, but also I feel like it does the whole, okay, this is a movie out of time and out of place a lot better than The Artist did. Yep. Because The Artist felt like a movie that was trying to pay homages to what we all think a movie like that would be. When I was watching The Lighthouse, granted there were a couple of modern shots. There's a lot more like horizontal tracking shots than they probably had back in the day, pre-Kubrick. But I go back to just the staging of how they would shoot the shot reverse shot, and it wouldn't just be their shoulder and their heads. Back in those older films, they would shoot their head, their shoulders, and half their torso. And that was consistent with the style back then, and it's consistent with it today. So just the dedication to making it feel as authentic as possible, as opposed to feeling as an homage, again, lent more credibility to the older feel of the movie, the old time look and feel of it. Just, oh my God, so many perfect poisons.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, with The Artist, it's like, I mean, that movie's very consciously meta in how appropriates the style of older movies, whereas, there's nothing really meta or winking about The Lighthouse. It's 100% sincere in its style. Like, we want it to look old. It looks old.
Yeah.
But at the same time, better than any old movie ever did.
I don't know. It looks very like it looks like a 4K transfer of an old movie. Like it looks
fair.
that good. Or I mean, obviously the quality of lenses that we have now are better, yada yada yada. But it still looks it still holds on to that old feel, probably because it was shot on film. And I'm wondering what kind of lenses they shot it on as well, because even though lens technology technobabble, it still looks really good, and it doesn't look too modern while still also having a modern appeal to it. And obviously, the other thing that I really liked about the movie was the sound design, because it starts off really quickly with Willem Dafoe randomly farting. And I love that.
Yep.
And they kept it consistent throughout the whole movie, to the point where Robert Pattinson's like, and all you're farting, why are you farting so much? And I'm like, oh yeah.
And your farts. Your fucking farts. God damn it.
And your smells. And all of these little... It's a movie of, I think it's easy to kind of describe the movie as 6-second elevator pitch. Two men on a lighthouse go crazy, but there's so many great little details, like Willem Dafoe constantly farts.
The stuff missing an eye, the one-eyed seagull,
and how that's a recurring
head,
thing.
Pattinson missing an eye at the end.
Yep. Mm-hmm. It really, and even the ending, I love the fact that he opens it up and the light comes, and I if you actually read the Wikipedia summary of it, because I was like, let me just do a quick summary, because I want to make sure I didn't miss anything in the middle. And they're like, and he opens it up and he's laughing or screaming. And I'm like, all right, if you can't decide if he's laughing or screaming, then I think they did a good job of making it so that you don't know what's in that thing. Robert Eggers is never going to tell you, and it's become the new great light box mystery.
Yeah, well, I mean, Defoe says kind of what's in the light. He says it's it's shape-shifting things that from how it sounded to me, it's like basically if you look into the light and you are unworthy of it, it will show you unremitting horror that drives you insane.
Right.
But if you look into the light and you are worthy of it, it'll show you the most beautiful things you've ever seen.
And who's to say that they're not the same thing?
Exactly. I think that's the point, is that they are the same thing.
Which is great.
I mean, that ending is the best moment in any movie I've seen this year. And I love it because I was paralyzed with chills running through my entire body when I saw it.
Same here.
And it's one of those things that you can only do in film. He opens the light, and it's a shot of him with no dialogue, nothing, where he looks into it with ecstasy and then begins just screaming and screaming, and everything gets just distorted. The sound is distorted to where you can barely hear it. The lighting gets blown out, so the image is distorted beyond recognition. Mm-hmm. And it's you can only do that in a movie. It's the only medium where that works, and it's magical. It's so...
It's perfect.
Robert Eggers needs to just get all of the Oscars for that thing alone. Because with one single shot, he has pushed the medium farther than any person who will be nominated for an Academy Award this year.
I'm gonna take that a step backwards, because I feel like I had seen an ending similar to that in another movie, in another horror movie. Probably. It probably felt similar to either Hereditary or Midsummer, but just the changing in the sound design like that felt very similar. And then, oh my God, maybe it's because it's a familiar aspect that I've read in a book or something, or maybe I've seen in a movie. But the thing when he opens it up and it sort of oversaturates and it kind of consumes him and drives him mad. I feel like that's a thing that I've seen before, done not quite the same, but similarly.
Well, what I mean is that ending where a person looks into the source of great power and is destroyed by it. I mean, that's been done a million times.
Right.
That's in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, that's not the one I'm
But
thinking
it's never
of.
been, I don't think it's ever quite been done this way. And I mean, obviously, the specific technical aspects of how it's done are what make it great.
Right.
You can see them in other movies. Have you ever seen Begotten?
No.
Okay, so that it feels very Begotten-y.
And I was
Begotten is also one of the main inspirations for the whole like middle dream sequence of Beyond the Black Rainbow. So in that same sense, like that ending feels kind of Beyond the Black Rainbow-ish.
okay. So
Go ahead.
I was gonna say it reminded me a lot of the ending to Oblivion. No, Annihilation. It reminded me a lot of the
Annihilation.
ending to Annihilation as
Oh
well.
God, that's another movie with an amazing ending.
Yeah, it is. It is. That's maybe that's why, because like the sound design of the ending for Annihilation drove me mad, and the way that they mixed the sound at the end of The Lighthouse, I was also like, oh my God, it's driving me mad. It's great. I love it. It's a great and.
So good.
I don't think it would be. I think having it end with coming back to the seagulls and the seagull lands on him and starts pecking at his eye or whatever. I was like, yep, that's perfect. That seagull, it's probably Willem Dafoe.
It could be. I almost wonder, like, because I mean, it's implied that like the one-eyed seagull is the previous Wiki's assistant. You know?
Yeah.
But I wonder almost if it's like if Willem Dafoe has just been murdering assistants and they're all those seagulls, or if Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson are the same person and he has been constantly murdering everyone else on that island until he finally dies and they can all have their revenge on him.
Oh man, your theory. You need to publish this on the internet, and then
I'll get a Yahoo article that's like this fan theory about the lighthouse.
Yeah, and it won't
change everything.
It won't stop showing up on my Google feed, and it's like, look at this fan theory, and then it'll be like shared by Vox, like this is the fan theory to end all fan theories about the lighthouse. This is gonna change how you interpret the movie.
You know, I like fan theories because it's a sign that people are talking about whatever movie in a serious way. But I really hate when they get published with some like stupid clickbaity headline. It's like, this fan theory changes everything. It's like, bro, like it's just something a guy on Reddit said. Like, take it easy. I mean, yeah, it's great that people are talking about whatever movie or TV show and like in a serious way with depth, and they are thinking about these things and trying to make these connections. Like, I think that's great, and I think more people should do that. But calm the fuck down. Like all it is someone took their post-movie bar talk, typed it out, and now Vox is republishing it. It's not even their own content, really.
No, it's not. But that's what I'm going to do with you, and we're going to get millions of hits. So expect it to come and relink back here. A couple more things about Lighthouse. We haven't really touched on the production design of it at all, but like going back to it, the one thing that stands out to me, I know this is going to sound really like film nerdy, but my favorite moment is when you see, I think it's on their jackets and on the rescue tubes that they have there, the rescue donuts, and it says like the USSLA or whatever, like the United States Lighthouse Association or whatever. And I was like, that's such a great small touch that probably no one is going to care about. But that
it says
really
that on the
adds.
dials as well.
Yes.
That like measure the weather.
All of those little things. It's just like, I think we were talking about how Robert Eggers doesn't do anything with the camera. He just lets the DP shoot it the way that DP wants to shoot it. Robert Eggers has a background in production design, I believe. So it's...
Yeah, he did production design for a long time before going into directing.
Which makes sense why like The Witch is so embedded in reality, why there's such a focus on... Maybe focus is the wrong word, but it seems like they focused a lot on the fact that there are chamber pots. He goes a long way to not romanticizing this time period. This time period looks fucking horrible.
Can you imagine watching Game of Thrones where like all of the attractive like actresses are just shitting in chamber pots?
Oh my god, that'd be hilarious. I would love for them
just
to just
make it
touch
as like
upon it
dirty
once.
and gross as possible.
It's like all of those hot maids that the king is like, come to my chamber after you're done with your duties. Of course, her last duty is like the chamber pot duty, and she's like, do I really want to do this? Just dumps the whole chamber pot on her head. Like welcome to grimdark fantasy, baby.
Oh, the moment where Pattinson is throwing out the two chamber pots and they get caught in the wind and blow back on him. Like that's also hilarious.
So great. Well, like the little mermaid icon that he starts whacking off to. I'm like
the scrimshaw.
Yeah, is that what it is?
Yeah, scrimshaw is like those little ivory carvings.
There's nothing there that remotely you could latch onto, but that's all they had. That's the best that they had at that time period.
Yeah, I think it's like how you like, you know, they would talk about like in the Victorian era, like how scandalous it was if a woman showed her ankles ankles or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Like, if a woman showed her ankles, like every man within, shouting distance
Better
is
than
gonna start
Viagra.
like beating off in the street.
Beating off into their chamber pots.
They're filthy, disgusting chamber pots.
That-
God, it must have been so just gross and dirty to live in that time, before
Yep.
like antibacterial soap and Windex and shit.
And regular showers. Well, remember in the mattress, there's that little slot in the mattress that Robert Pattinson. And like at first I was like, what the hell is that all about? And then they cut to the shot later on of Willem Dafoe just like humping his mattress.
Fucking his mattress.
Like, oh,
that's what that's for.
Oh man, all of those little things. So good, dude.
It's funny because like I don't think people realize like how alien the minute details of the past are compared to now. Like, yes, you read a book written in 1820 and you're like, wow, these people are just like me. They have the same wants and needs and think a lot of the same things and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, that's true. But like the little details of day-to-day life, like how you eat your dinner, where you go to work, all that stuff, it's like from another fucking planet. It's so different from life now.
Well, I think we take for granted.
It's funny how far they go to, I think, show that in the Lighthouse.
Yeah, and especially a lot of movies won't go that far. Like they kind of show the glamorized version, which is kind of what we were talking about in the current war director's cut. They try and show the glamorized, the glossy version of like, isn't it great living here? And it's like, if you want your teeth falling out all the time, it's not, like.
Yeah, well, it's like to bring up Game of Thrones again. Part of the selling point of that show is it's gritty, realistic, true to medieval times type
bullshit
fantasy or whatever.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like on the broad level, yeah. But on the micro level, no. No one in medieval times looked that good. Like, no one had that many teeth in their head. Everyone was just shitting in the street or in chamber pot. It was a vile, disgusting time. Everyone was probably covered with, like, sores and shit. No one had makeup on. You can only take the realistic depiction of the past thing so far, but I think Robert Eggers tries to take it as far as he reasonably can without making it, just disgusting.
I'm going to use the term selective editing because, again, it's not like Robert Pattinson really looks that good, and Willem Dafoe's hair, it always looks shitty, and his beard always looks like a complete mess. So, I mean...
Well, it's funny because Robert Pattinson kind of looks like crap, and then Willem Dafoe's like, what's a guy like you doing out here? And he's like, what do you mean a guy like me? He's like, pretty as a picture.
And you're just like, yep, what a shitty time.
It was a shitty time, yeah.
God, dude, I like Lighthouse a lot.
I love that movie. It's so good. I hope it sweeps the awards. It should win Best Picture, Best Director.
I'll be happy if it wins independent awards. I don't think it's even gonna break anything other than it. It might get a nod for cinematography because it's so out there with the aspect ratio. But if they didn't do it for A Ghost Story, something tells me A24 is not going to get any sort of help on The Lighthouse.
Well, I mean, Ghost Story should not have won for cinematography, so it makes sense that it wasn't nominated. I mean, yeah.
There's a lot of movies that shouldn't win but are nominated anyway, and then a couple that shouldn't win that win anyway. So.
Well, that's most movies. Have you seen the fucking Oscar campaign for Avengers Endgame? They're nominating it for Best Editing. Or, they're saying 4-year consideration for, Best Editing.
Yeah,
are you fucking kidding me?
Do you think this
You think the studio, marketing team that hacks every fucking movie to death, the suit approach of the major studios that has resulted in some of the worst edited movies I have ever seen in my entire life, you want to reward them and that awful line of thinking with a fucking award? Are you shitting me?
Do you think Lighthouse is even getting a 4-year consideration campaign?
It better. Or I will fly to New York and punch some guy in the face. It is so far and away the best movie of the year. And the second best movie of the year, Under the Silver Lake, is also an A24 movie that A24 fucked up horribly in their handling and release of it.
Well, what happened with that one? Because the only thing I know about it is that it was pretty much released onto VOD.
Yeah, that's it. That's all that happened. It was released onto VOD with no promotion.
We're going to have to talk...
They literally buried the movie. I remember Austin likes A24 on Facebook, and he was complaining that he hadn't seen a single ad for Under the Silver Lake, but he saw like a million ads for some other movie that was coming out at the same time.
We're gonna have to talk about Under the Silver Lake at a different time and look into like what happened with why they squashed it, because it's just the weirdest thing. Like Under the Silver Lake is so far up A24's alley style wise that it doesn't make sense why it just kind of collapsed, why there was no support at all for it. And look, to be honest though, they've put a lot more effort behind the Lighthouse. I saw a lot more previews. It was wide released in my area, which I was kind of surprised at. Hopefully they're gonna realize that they've got some sort of gold with it, even if that some sort of gold is just nominating Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe for, you know, best actor and best supporting actor.
I mean, if A24 has any balls at all, and I assume they do because they funded this movie,
right?
They have to push for every award they possibly can because it deserves that.
I agree.
It looks like it's already made back its money. You know,
really,
it was made for less than $4 million. Like the budget is less than $4 million. It's sitting at $7 million right now. So I mean, I guess if it hits like 12 million, it'll have made. It'll be profitable.
If it hits 9 million, it should be profitable.
Yeah. So I mean, it's doing well financially. Yeah. It's so good. It's so out of this world good. And this year for movies has been so incredibly weak as well.
Well, the tail end is looking better so far. It's
definitely
about to fall off a ladder now. But like after The Irishman comes out for you, and then after Ford v Ferrari comes out for me, I don't really see anything else of
Uncut Gems.
What
is the other one of note? But yeah.
Which one?
Uncut Gems.
Yeah, Uncut
Safdie
Gems.
Brothers.
That's right. Uncut Gems.
But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of the big quote-unquote movies this year were dog shit. There are, you know, the kind of the standard like big prestige movies that usually are designed just to win awards, like your standard Oscar bait, like the Danish Girl type crap.
Yeah.
I haven't seen much of it this year, and I don't know if it's just because I'm not paying attention or
No, I haven't seen a lot of it either. Well, speaking of the Danish Girl, Cats is coming out, and I'm excited about that actually.
Oh, fuck, man.
For all the wrong reasons I'm excited about it, but I'm excited about that.
I think everyone's excited about it because it looks like a The Room level train wreck.
It looks like that turd that you polish to perfection. Like it's so bad. It's another one of those Tom Hooper so baffling choices kind of thing. Like Les Mis was just so baffling in every single choice in that movie. Cats, it's going to be so baffling. We have new synthetic hair technology that I'm excited about it. I can't wait to see that train wreck. See if it's any good.
Any last thoughts on the Lighthouse?
I don't think so. My last thought, if it wins anything, it would win for sound editing.
I'd say if it wins anything, it wins for acting, but it should win everything. In a just world, it would win all the awards.
Well, it could win for production design. I don't think it's going to win for costumes though. I think
Cats.
Oh my god, they'd be like the Breakthrough Academy Award, Cats, because all of the costumes were computer generated. Like, oh no, the wrong direction to go. Any other last thoughts for Lighthouse for you?
Oh god, there isn't enough time for me to list all of the superlatives and all of the little things that I like about this movie. Like I like how the ocean in the opening shot looks like the ocean from Solaris. Like there's all these little things that are so good about it. And it is a movie where it's just like this critical mass of teeny tiny little details that build up to something really amazing. Everyone should see it at least once, if not twice. You know, I've heard some people say, oh, it's confusing. It's like, well, yes, it's a dream movie. Dreams can be confusing.
Right.
They're there for you to like the whole point is you're supposed to go see the movie and then talk to your friends and be like, all right, what did you think? What happened? Like, what is like, are the seagulls just all these dead sailors who want revenge on Willem Dafoe? Do they want revenge on Robert Pattinson? Is there a seagull conspiracy going on? Like, what is the light supposed to represent? Is Willem Dafoe supposed to be a god and the light is heaven or the source of his power or something? I don't know, but it's all cool shit to talk about, you know, all the little, again, because everything is executed so perfectly. It's just, you can generate endless discussion and debate from it. And I love movies like that you can just analyze to death and still never really get past, you know, the surface of it. Or like no matter how deep you go, there's always further you can go. So yeah, high shiny and chrome.
Mine is a solid shiny and chrome. Like everyone should see it. Well,
Everyone should see it.
that's not true. There's a lot of people I know who won't like it. But
They should still see it.
if you're willing to commit yourself to it and kind of just go in with an open mind, I think you'll enjoy it.
You know, it's like I know people who wouldn't like certain movies, but I feel like there are some movies that are just so great. Everyone, including people who wouldn't like the movie, just should see it anyway. Because there's value in seeing something you don't like. It helps you articulate your own view of the world. Because you can articulate your view of the world in two ways. Either I agree or I like, or I agree or I disagree or I dislike. And they're both equally valuable.
As long as as long as you'd say like, if you say, oh, the Lighthouse sucks, and you can't support that with like, well, the Lighthouse clearly doesn't suck, but why don't you like it? You know?
Well, exactly. I mean, that's the point. If you go see the Lighthouse and you don't like it, it's a value. You will benefit from figuring out how to articulate why you don't like it.
Hopefully. And if you don't like The Lighthouse, please send us an email at underthewheelspodcast@gmail.com so that we can
argue with you.
Exactly. I was going to say so that we can take you down onto it and tell you why you're wrong. But I would be curious to see the people who don't like it, what it is that they don't like, whether it's, you know, the pacing or the subject matter, or they just don't like horror movies in general.
I don't know.
Which I wouldn't.
Well, so funny thing, I was talking about all these horror movies seem to fall into a range where it's like
this can't be a 60%, can it? It's got to be like a 92 or an 80.
Audience rating?
Yeah, what's the audience rating on this one?
It's like in the 70s. So it's a lot more positive than some other kind of divisive horror movies. Because the critical rating is 92, the audience score is 71, which is sort of par for the course. Like I said, the critical range can be from 0 to 100. The audience score is always like mixed to positive. And that's every horror movie, good or bad. I don't know why. All right.
Going from a movie that was universally liked to a movie that is just sort of okay, and going from a movie that's incredibly deep to a movie that's just kind of there. Let's talk about The King.
The King.
Robert Pattinson,
What's
round
your rating?
2. On Rotten Tomatoes, The King was, I believe it was.
What's your rating?
Oh, what's my rating on it?
Yes. What is your Under the Wheels score?
It's tough because I think that overall it's really just fine. But to me, it's definitely a witness. It's the same middle ground that Outlaw King had for me, where like I really enjoyed Outlaw King on a geeky level of I liked the time period, I liked the dynamics of the characters, and the movie itself had just enough fun filmmaking craft in it for me that I was like, okay, I dig it, and I like the actors. The King is kind of similar because I like the director's work for the most part. Shot wonderfully, great actors in it. Whether they're giving great performances is a different thing, although I'm not a fan of Timothée Chalamet. And it almost asks interesting questions and almost kind of goes in an interesting direction, but at the end of the day, there's too many traditional moments, there's too many like by the number, by beat for beat, that it loses some of the interesting atmosphere, that Michaud's other films have.
Yeah. It's fine for me. It's okay. It's like, and I'm probably just gonna get into spoilers really quickly because I just don't give a shit, and there's not much to spoil anyway.
Well, if you've, I think it maybe takes one or two turns that are different than Shakespeare's plays, but given that,
the thing is, like, I don't know why this movie exists. I don't know why this was made, because it's like, it doesn't have, like, it's not historically accurate at all. So that's not the angle. It's not accurate to Shakespeare, so that's not it either. It's not exciting, so that's not it. The performances, for the most part, are annoying. Everyone just sits around hissing. Especially Timothée Chalamet. He hisses almost all of his dialogue, like, and it drives me up a fucking wall. That guy is the worst. He's just this moody little serpent. Maybe it's about power in that kind of, like, you know how every time a script writer says a movie is about power and then doesn't say anything else, you know it's gonna suck? Like the Game of Thrones guys said Game of Thrones is about power, but they don't say anything else. Or like how fucking David Goyer said Batman v Superman is about power, but he doesn't say anything else. Like, you know the movie's gonna be shit. So it's kind of about power in that way. On a story beat level, it's a remake of The Godfather. It's literally just like the head of the mafia is old, his empire is like divided and in chaos. He dies, his son takes over, his son goes to war, wipes out all their enemies, finds out that a lot of the troubles that have befallen his own family are the fault of, you know, someone very close to them, so he kills them at the very end, and then has a scene where he's sort of crowned as the king that happens under sort of inauspicious circumstances.
So I think that the movie is to take out the romanticized notion of Henry V, because I think it's easy to see, you watch, Kenneth Branagh or you watch Laurence Olivier do Henry V, and it's all about either, getting ready to...
We few, we happy few, we band of brothers, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, like, oh, this is, he's the king that used to drink with us, and then he was able to grow up, and now he's an inspiring figure, and we love him, and he's great, and yada, yada, yada. And this was kind of made to peel back the curtain and be like, well, no, kings suck. In general, this king in particular, like, if you look at him, he's not the worst king, but the sort of Citizen Kane style path where he was idealistic, and by going on one campaign, his only campaign, from what I understand, it goes from idealistic youth to grizzled, gritty, old guy. Yeah, it's like, well, yeah, in this case, 3 days later, the world sucks and I'm wearing black makeup. Like,
I'm goth now.
Yeah, like everyone must die. That's probably where the movie kind of loses me, in the fact that, like, it lacks, because, okay, the movie to me lacked that David Michaud feel of Rover and Animal Kingdom, where he built a very specific mood, in the sense of like, it's Rover specifically, because I've been watching it more recently, has a very deliberate pace to it, and it feels very isolated and silent. And there are a lot of moments of that where, Hal is going to be isolated in space. He doesn't know who he can trust anymore, and the person that he does lean on to trust ends up ultimately betraying him, but not really betraying him, because he's like, you wanted peace, this is the only way we could get peace, but now you're mad because you got what you want, and now you're killing everyone. So, like, it's a little muddied in its execution, and it goes back and forth between, like, these really nice, dramatic, moody shots that Adam Arkapaw and Michaud compose, and then there's all of the sort of traditional, like, hey, everyone's loud and we're in a conference room and this and that, and it's very, like, by the numbers, generic historical fiction stuff. So that's kind of where the movie loses it for me. But I went in thinking about that, about, like, Godfather and everything. The difference is, in The Godfather, everyone loved Vito Corleone. Like,
I know.
He was universally loved.
Difference.
And in this, it's like, oh no, everyone hates Henry IV, and they hate Henry V, and almost seemingly for no reason, Henry V goes from a guy who had a lot of mercy to a guy who had no mercy. Like, I could pin the point overnight, mid sentence. Like, it was just very. It was just very odd when that happened.
From merciful to merciless mid sentence.
Well, like the
It's true though. That's the best part, is you're dead accurate with that statement.
The guy, to the point where, like, I had no idea what happened. I had to go and read a summary of, like, why did he do this? When the French agents approach his cousins, and his cousins come to him and they're like, hey, these French agents approached us to have them join their side. I think they're going after you. And he's just
like, how dare you die?
Yeah, well, he's like, all right, we're going to war with France and you guys are losing your heads. And I was like, wait, what?
What? Yeah, I was so confused by that.
That's probably the moment where they kind of lost me. And yeah, like, Chalamet is just like a brooding teen, which is...
the entire movie.
Is that his only gimmick? Is that why everyone thinks he's like the next great mid-teen, up-and-coming actor, is because he broods a lot? I think that's just his face.
It's just his face. What's interesting is, there's some article that was like, the king is supposed to be Timothée Chalamet's transition from, like, brooding teen heartthrob to serious adult actor.
He was a heartthrob.
But all it goes to... I guess. But all it goes to prove is that Pattinson has done this transition and done it much more successfully.
Agreed.
Because that's the only lesson you can gain from the movie, is that the only takeaway of this movie is that Robert Pattinson is amazing, and he will eat up the entire screen if you put a camera on him.
There's one more lesson to learn. Timothée Chalamet should not be the lead in a movie.
Never. Which, I mean, I was already skeptical.
Au revoir, Dune.
Of the fucking Dune adaptation, as if we need another one, and as if we need Denis Villeneuve to direct more, like, stilted, overlong
sci-fi epic,
dead air sci-fi epics.
But those fight scenes...
And I say that as a big fan of Denis Villeneuve. I really love all his movies that I've seen except Blade Runner. like he's either great or he's the worst, and there's no in between. But yeah, it's Have you seen Open Range?
Yes.
The statement you made about trying to de-romanticize medieval times, I think maybe this is supposed to be the Open Range of Henry V. But Open Range is not a mind-blowing movie by any means, but it is very good.
Right. It's solid.
And I think I think this movie is aspiring to just be very good. However, it's kind of like the Heaven's Gate situation. Like, you can't be 2.5 fucking hours and your only aspiration is to be very good. You have to be amazing to justify me sitting in front of my TV for that long.
Or not only that, you have to communicate whatever message you're trying to communicate. It needs to be done better. Because you're lost on it and you're able to read messages easily in movies. I kind of pulled some information, but I'm very, very confused as to not necessarily why it was made, because I think they wanted to go grimdark on, that's going to be the theme. They wanted to go grimdark on Henry V, but at the same time, they don't quite do a good job of it. I guess the Falstaff scene is supposed to be good. And I actually like Joel Edgerton in this as Falstaff. I thought he did a good job.
Yeah, he does a good job as Falstaff. What's interesting is I remember reading someplace that Joel Edgerton, his first sort of big acting role was in Australian theater playing Falstaff in the Henry IV parts 1 and 2 and Henry V.
Holy shit.
And that, I think, part of why he approached David Meekod with this movie was he wanted to kind of relive his glory days playing John Falstaff. So that's why they made the script. And part of me thinks the only reason this movie exists is so Joel Edgerton has an excuse to play John Falstaff. But he's not playing Shakespeare's Falstaff. He's playing the grimdark Falstaff of this movie.
The one who actually survives into Henry V.
Yeah, that's right. He doesn't.
I think he's dead in Henry V in Shakespeare's version, right? Because I'm going off of Kenneth Branagh's movie. That's the only point of reference I have for this play.
Well, doesn't he live into like the beginning of Henry V or something and Chimes at Midnight?
He probably. All I know is
like, doesn't he live long enough to see Henry V become king?
Yes.
And then dies?
Yeah, I believe he does. Yeah. And then the play Henry V is all about the Battle of Agincourt. So when Robert Pattinson is like, "You will die here on this Agincourt," I was like, oh, there's the really obvious nod. There it is.
Well, the other really obvious nod is when Henry V rides up on his horse and is like, "What are you expecting? Some kind of speech?"
Oh, God.
And I'm just like, oh,
I didn't even
fuck
occur
me
to you.
sideways. Like, that's such a cheap little...
wink.
That's the worst type of pop culture reference, where it's a remake of something, and you're like, what are you expecting? The climax of the thing you like? No, here's something less interesting.
Once more into the breaches, dear friends. That's all I ask. It's probably better that Timothy Chalamet didn't butcher that.
Well, his speech in this movie made absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's necessarily better that he didn't do Once More Into the Breach, Dear Friends.
Well, I mean, I guess the people who don't want that being butchered, I would rather him just speak inane babble that'll be endlessly edited into, gobbledygook later on than than to have him like try his best to do like a Shakespearean, one of the famous Shakespearean speeches there. But I mean, again,
it is the Shakespearean speech.
Well, there's that, and then there's To Be and Not to Be.
Well, but no one remembers the rest of To Be or Not to Be.
I mean, I don't remember anything after Once More Under the Breaches, Dear Friends.
Well, but everyone remembers We Few, We Happy Few, We Band of Brothers. Each that sheds his blood with me today is my brother, and all that.
I didn't know that.
Whereas, like, To Be or Not to Be, I can think of To Be or Not to Be, that is the question, whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fate, and then forget the rest.
Yeah. It's like, and what the summary, he's not sure if he's going to do it or not.
He doesn't know if he wants to commit suicide, which is... Sure.
Yeah. You're looking at Hamlet and you're like, I kind of wish he just kind of went with it.
Well, I don't think Shakespeare is remembered exactly for having captivating characters. Well, he's mostly known for having interesting dialogue. And fun plots. Because his comedies, at least, are all the same but really fun. Going with the open range angle, I thought the take of like having all of the fights and battles be really kind of ugly and unglamorous was interesting. I respect that decision, but it's like...
Well, how far into the battle before you started laughing?
Not far.
Like, as soon as they get to the floor and they're like punching each other in full suits of armor, like, and you're like, this is... I liked it because there was a like a documentary, Reclaiming the Blade, and they were talking about how in Renaissance times, all battle, and even now, all fights end on the floor, all fights are really messy and they're not glamorous, and it's things like that I like. I'm like, okay, that's really cool. That's great.
All fights end on the floor. It's why you got to learn jujitsu.
All fights end on the floor. You have to learn jujitsu. And as they said in Kingdom of Heaven, there's more than one way to use a sword. Which is all I thought about as I was watching this movie. I was like, they bashed the guy with the hilt of the sword, and I'm like, Liam Neeson.
Well, it's funny. There's in the fight scene in the Lighthouse when the fight goes to the floor.
Yes, oh my god, I completely forgot that fight scene.
You know, there's a part where Robert Pattinson has like a hook under Willem Dafoe's chin, and I'm like, all right, all he needs is an arm over the top, and he's got the choke.
Yeah.
I'm just like. Like he's got the back take, he's got the hook. He just needs to throw his arm over the top and squeeze, and he's won the fight. But I mean, obviously that's
obviously he wouldn't
it
know
wouldn't be
that
accurate if he did that. It's just it was weird that was like the first thing that popped into my mind when I was watching that.
But again, like back to period pieces on that, like most fights, that's like a lot of the rest of that movie not glamorous, you know? It's Whereas in this, it was kind of similar, where it's like, oh, it's not glamorous. Especially when Robert Pattinson comes out in his full suit of armor for some reason.
Mm-hmm. And like slides around in the mud.
I like to think that was actually Robert Pattinson and not a stunt guy in that outfit. Like he legit was like, I'm doing this. I'm committing full.
That would have been so funny. Dude, his French accent is so outrageous. It's perfect. I was dying laughing.
He's so good as because I was watching it with my fiance, and she was like, "Oh my god, that guy looks so familiar," and I was just like giggling in the corner. I was like, "I wonder if she's gonna recognize him." Is that? Oh my god, what was he? Is that? Oh my! Is that Twilight guy? I was like, "Yep, it's Robert Pattinson." She's like, "I don't even recognize him." Like, yep. Yeah.
Which is funny because he looks the most like his Twilight character.
Because he's all pasty and he's got like little.
He's all pasty and weird looking.
Yeah. But it's the long hair that throws everyone off. They're like long hair in the French. I also like how Timothée Chalamet starts talking in French and he's like, "Oh no, we will do it in English." And I'm like, you don't have to give any other reason, Robert Pattinson. I know it's because you don't speak French. But then he gives an equally good reason. He's like, "I love it how barbaric it is," and I'm like, oh, so good.
The 10 or so minutes that Robert Pattinson is in this movie are shiny and chrome by themselves. The rest of the movie, not so good.
I will say, like, I don't love Sean Harris as an actor, the guy who played as the do you know his name?
Father Gascoigne.
Oh my god, you did. I was going to say, I don't remember
his name is William. Yeah, his name's William Gascoigne.
Yeah.
In the movie, I think. I just call him Father Gascoigne because I like Bloodborne.
But he does a good. He's always good. Although, like in Mission Impossible, he's like on the verge of campy. But I thought he did a really good job in this movie.
The thing with him that he does a good job in everything. I just get annoyed by how hissy he is. Like I said, everyone hisses their dialogue.
Yeah, it's not as.
That's just kind of his style.
It is. It's not as fun when his voice is coming out of his nose.
I know.
Henry.
Have you? Speaking of Australians doing medieval Shakespeare, have you seen Justin Kurzel's Macbeth?
No.
You have to. It's Adam Arkapa's best work, first of all. Secondly, Sean Harris plays Macduff.
Wait, is that the one with Michael Fassbender?
Yep.
Okay. The grim dark Macbeth?
Yes.
That was grimmer and darker than Roman Polanski's?
I don't know if it's grim dark Macbeth. It's orange Macbeth. Everything's orange.
But
that movie is great. It's awesome.
Okay.
And it's actually just a straight adaptation of Shakespeare. Like there's no historical revision crap. It's just the exact play.
Okay.
So yeah, you should see it. But yeah, Sean Harris plays Macduff, and Macduff is the guy who kills Macbeth at the end.
Right.
And he's really good in that. And I think that was the first movie I kind of noticed him in, and then I didn't recognize him in Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation because he didn't have the beard.
Right. Okay.
The beard comes back in
Fallout.
Fallout. Yeah.
Ethan, your mission, should you choose to accept it. But I wonder, did you ever really choose?
I never really said no. Oh, he's so odd. But like, it's so weird because he's borderline bad in the Mission Impossible movies, and yet he's still good. Like
he's good, but he teeters on the edge of being a ham.
Which I think is what you kind of want in a villain. So, But in this...
At least in like a big blockbuster villain.
Yeah. You want someone who's kind of going to go over the top and have fun.
As much as I have very mixed feelings about Skyfall, I really like Javier Bardem just because, he's really good, but he teeters on the edge of being like this campy hammy performance.
He has something in that movie. I like Skyfall because I like Kincaid. He's the best.
I hate everything after the second act is over.
Oh no, I love Kincaid. He's the best part of the movie.
You mean Alfred?
Bond. As I live and breathe, and he's like hitting on M, and he's like, all old ladies, like all great ladies, she has her secret ways, and I'm like, it's so cringy, and yet it's so funny at the same time. I'm like, yeah, Kincaid made the second half of that movie for me.
I don't know. For me, the movie's awesome until they get to Scotland, and then I hate it.
Too much James Bond backstory. It's like from that moment.
It's too much Batman Begins ripoff.
I guess that was another statement that like someone was like, oh, you mean when Sam Mendes did his best Christopher Nolan? I'm like, maybe in Spectre, when he stole Christopher Nolan's editor and cinematographer and made a movie that was not that great, but I didn't see it in Skyfall.
Wait, didn't Roger Deakins do Spectre?
No, it was Hoyt van Hoytema, or Voight van Hoytema, as I sometimes call him.
Did Sam Mendes steal Hoyt van Hoytema from Nolan, or did Nolan steal him from Mendes? Because I think, wasn't Hoyt van Hoytema's first project with Nolan Dunkirk?
No, he did Interstellar.
Oh,
yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he did.
Speaking of those two ripping each other off, Sam Mendes' new movie, 1914,
right.
1917, the trailer makes it look like Dunkirk. I'm sure it isn't.
It's not, because the year's
exactly
off,
like Dunkirk.
But yeah, I agree with you.
But it's, the trailer is the Dunkirk trailer, which is strange.
I know it's already going to be different because it looks like this movie focuses on two soldiers, whereas Dunkirk focused on the entire
army. Yeah. Well, we'll see. Maybe we'll see if there's a ticking clock throughout the entire movie, or if there's that weird like sound illusion that who's the composer?
Hans Zimmer.
It's that weird sound illusion that he likes to do where you have like two notes an octave apart and they go up to the next octave, and then when the higher one hits the higher octave, it reverts to the low one, and then it just continues on, and it sounds like this constant increase in pitch just forever and ever and ever. Which is,
we'll see.
That's the entire score for Dunkirk, by the way.
That and...
Well, yeah, ticking clock and endless increase in pitch.
We'll see what happens because Thomas Newman basically, I will say this, Thomas Newman basically ripped off half the score to Batman Begins for half the score of Skyfall. So that's where I'm like, okay, I'm with you there until he gets to Shanghai, and then it gets all technobabble. I was like, oh yeah. Okay, any last thoughts on The King?
No, it's lame.
Robert Pattinson.
Just find like YouTube clips of Pattinson and you're good. You got all the good stuff.
I don't think it's quite as lame. And I was actually engaged for the entire movie, but it's not.
I was until I realized it wasn't going anywhere.
Well, they could have definitely. What could they have done to make it better?
I don't know. It's so capital S serious.
Yeah. But
the best parts are with Robert Pattinson acting like a cartoon character.
Yeah. I don't know. It feels like it could have definitely been better. Well, let's go from that to Parasite. We're going to go from absolute trash to Parasite. Well, not absolute trash.
Well, not absolute trash, yeah. The King has some redeeming moments.
It's got more redeeming moments to me than for you, but yeah, probably something I'll put on and watch like in the background than something I'll actively engage in. Whereas with Parasite, for me, Parasite gets a high shiny and chrome. It has made my top 10 of the year.
Wow.
Yep.
That's good. It's a solid shiny and chrome for me, but go on.
This is where we're going to reverse because I actually like Parasite better than I like The Lighthouse.
Really?
Yeah.
Now that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because with The Lighthouse, even though the elements of the story were different, it is a story that I have heard before. Isolation causes insanity. The execution of The Lighthouse is spectacular, but the idea has been done before. With Parasite, every single time they fall into genre convention, he finds a way to twist it, which is...
And that's why I love Bong Joon-ho in general.
Yes, and that's...
But go on.
And that's what I agree with you on that. So, first off, the trailers are horrible for this movie. They do enough to get you in.
See a trailer for it.
Okay, the trailers for it make it look like the family works their way into... The poor family works their way into the rich family's life, and then the rich family is hiding a deep, dark secret. That's what the trailer makes it look like, which is like, okay, that's kind of tradition. That's kind of like, yeah, it's kind of typical. I can see where that's going. The movie itself, though, creatively gets all of the family members in a way that they make it very easy to see how this family that is poor but clever can weasel their way in. And then from there, they have the typical, like, oh, okay, we're all going to go and party at their house at this night, and, like, something really bad is going to happen. And the whole time you're expecting, like, okay, the family's going to come home. But it's not that. The housekeeper has something that she has to do, and she comes in, and she's like, oh, but I need to come in and get something. And you're like, okay, well, maybe this is the part where it becomes, like, the first Purge movie or something like that. But no, it then unveils the next layer of the onion, which is, oh, there's... Spoilers. Her husband has been living in this house and leeching off of this house for 4 years, which then leads to, now the old housekeeper has found out that the family that's moved in...
They're all family members. They're not independent.
They're not all independent people. It's a family that's just leeching off of this family. Okay, well that then leads to like Looney Tunes, Scooby-Doo-esque like chase to try and prevent, the family from finding out.
Yeah, which ends with someone dying.
Well, it ends with someone concussed, and then like the family just brutally wrapping up the housemaid and her husband and like leaving them there for her specifically to just die. And that's when it kind of gets dark until, like you were saying before, it shifts gears into like a comedy skit about not being detected. It's like Metal Gear comedy. And it's got probably the best sex scene that you'll see this year, maybe this decade. Like it's so great because it's so awkward to watch because the entire time without doing that thing where they cut away to the family every take, like every single awkward moment or every single like sexy moment of that, like he's sliding his hand sensually in, and the entire time you're thinking like, oh hey, the family is right there underneath the table listening to this happen. And then when the part that I always think about is when she's like, no, you have to go counterclockwise. Like that's such a specific detail. Like, yeah, they've been married a long time, they've done this a long time, and then when he's talking about like his smell and just, oh my god, that whole scene is perfect. Also, they wear clothes the entire time, which is also really funny to me. Like, that's okay. What if I'm going to pitch you a sex scene? Okay, all right. There's going to be other people in the room. Oh, that sounds hot. They're going to wear clothes the entire time. Okay. They're going to talk about putting on like disgusting clothes. Like, do you still have the cheap panties? Like, but like that whole sex scene is perfect. And then like they're about to escape the house, and it constantly felt like the movie was going to end at any moment, any of these times, and it just kept going further. Because like you were talking about the switch between it when it switches to then their house is flooded and they have to get everything out.
Yeah, it becomes like a melodrama briefly, and then back to a comedy, then like a thriller, then a dark, depressing drama.
Yes. Like the moment where so anyway, because they were able to take the conventions and turn them up on their head or use them in an interesting way. In addition to, I thought the technical aspects down the line were all like really good. It just felt like a very complete package to me. It's kind of what I look for in a movie. Sometimes I'm lucky enough to find it. Other times it ends up being a really pleasant surprise. Well, and especially like with a name like Parasite and the fact that it's coming out of, South Korea, you would think that it's going to be this sort of like really dingy, like, I know you said that he doesn't make them, but like, Asian extreme type movie, the way that, you look at the poster for it and it's just like this really weird poster, but it's actually turns out to be a very conventional movie that isn't, aside from like a couple of like the sex scene and when she gets concussed and when the kid gets hit on the head, like it could be a PG-13 movie.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because Bong Joon-ho is really good. If I was to try and encompass Bong Joon-ho's style in a couple key points, it would be like extreme tonal juggling and just constantly fucking with convention. emotions in the way that you said. And it's why his trailers are never very impressive, because they only show you the first 20 minutes of the movie or so.
Right.
Like the trailers for Snowpiercer are not impressive at all, because they don't go very far into what the movie's about, because the movie itself is so insane. If you showed any of it, it would ruin it, kind of.
Well, and
the fact that he can juggle, like, you're gonna get this crazy mishmash of things, but it gets you every time, is a testament, I think, to his skill. Like, he's so good at having a lighthearted scene where something gut-wrenching suddenly happens in the middle of it.
yeah. Well, like
Kind of like that like the Scooby-Doo chase scene.
Yeah.
Like you said it perfectly. It's very kind of light. It's thrilling, but in a fun way.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the old housekeeper gets the head injury that eventually kills her.
She gets kicked and falls down the stairs, yeah.
Yeah, that head injury kills her. Your stomach, like, turns over the second it happens, because you were having fun just a second ago, and then you're like, oh, fuck.
Yep.
And then, so his movies have a ton of social and political commentary in them. Like Memories of Murder, it's basically, more tonally inconsistent than Zodiac, but it's also very much about the South Korea of the 1980s and its transition from being kind of a backwater dictatorship into a modern democracy. And the serial killings that happen at that time are sort of, they're there as an exemplar of that change. Yeah, and same thing with Snowpiercer. The thing's loaded with social commentary, and same thing with Parasite, it's loaded with social commentary,
right.
and Okja, and all these other movies. And he's really good at ensemble staging. I think Every Frame of Painting made that point. He's really good at having a bunch of actors on screen at the same time.
Yeah.
And making them do interesting things.
Yeah. And keeping each scene interesting, which is hard to do. Or maybe it's just me, but I also like it when they delve into, we were talking about Joker last time, about delving into things that you don't normally see in movies. Watching people who live in a basement and have to, steal wireless internet from other people just to make sure that they can get the messages they need, and it's just the way that they handle it explores a side of life that I had never seen before, and I'm like, oh, I had ideas about it, but to be able to represent it so honestly, theoretically honestly,
well, it's like that theme of parasitism is really well fleshed out, where it's like, you have poor people who just have nothing, so they have to feed off of the scraps of people who have stuff. And that is explored in every way possible, but you also see how, the wealthy just cannot function without a bunch of poor folks to turn the gears of their lives and make everything run perfectly.
Right.
And it's interesting just how helpless the rich are, because they just don't know anything.
That's so funny. I never thought about it from that angle before. I was like, okay, yeah, I know why it's called Parasite, because, these two families are leeching off of the rich family. But you're right, immediately they're like, oh, hey, we need you to make this, the Ramudan, and we need you to do this, and you have to clean up, and you got to set up all the tables. Yep. And I felt like the wife got the short end of the stick in that, because everyone else, it's like, oh, I get to drive this really nice car. Oh, I get to tutor this person for 2 hours. Oh, I get to, bullshit about art for 2 hours. The housekeeper has to come in there and oh, let me clean the dishes and sweep the floor and,
cook your fancy meals.
Yeah, man, that wife really gets the short end of the stick in that.
But it's also interesting at the end when the man in the basement spoils the garden birthday party and just starts attacking people. It's the poor folks. They're the ones who take action and solve the problem. The rich people, they just run. And the family who owns the house is completely helpless. They can do nothing.
Right.
To the point where the dad, doesn't even want to touch the poor people because he thinks they're gross. And he kind of daintily picks up the car keys and starts to run, and the main guy who's in every Bong Joon-ho movie looks at him is what the fuck, man, I protected your kid, help us out, my daughter's dying. And the rich dad is like, I don't know, and he just kind of runs.
Yeah.
And
while
so
holding his
the poor dad just
hand over his nose, don't forget that.
Yeah, while holding his hand over, yeah, exactly.
Literally, what is that term? Oh my gosh,
he just can't stand
the upturned
smell.
nose or whatever it is,
yeah, literally an upturned nose. So the poor dad is like, you know what, you're just as worthless as you think we are, and stabs him.
And then but of course that's followed by that moment of when he's in the cellar and he's just living out the rest of his days there, and he's like, oh, he wasn't, what did I do? Oh, why did I do such a crazy thing? Why did I let it get to me? But it's like they set it up earlier in the movie where he could snap, which is a microcosm of the rest of the movie, when he immediately grabs his wife's throat because she was insulting him. Yeah, no, it's...
yeah, exactly.
I just thought Parasite was fantastic.
Yeah, it's a really good movie. I'm trying to think if like what other points there are. 'Cause, I mean, again, the tonal shifts are kind of the trademark, and it's what I really like about it. You know, the fact that it can hit you with a surprise at any moment. Like it starts off as kind of like this fun like heist movie almost,
Right.
and then it's kind of got this like Ocean's 11 like snappy, lighthearted heist movie feel. And then it's like a comedy, then it's a dark comedy, then it's a thriller, then it's a comedy again, then it's like a horror movie.
Let me mention this. The little details in the movie. I love how the kid kept saying that's metaphorical. I thought that was so funny.
Oh yeah.
He'd be like,
this is so metaphorical.
Oh dude, that fortune rock, man, that's so metaphorical. I'm like, I wonder if that's comedy that isn't translating over here because of the way we read it. But I think that's hilarious.
I'm certain it is.
That's like his thing to say. Like, I really like that. And what do you think? Like, do you think the fortune rock, what effect do you think that has on the families? Like, as the big metaphorical item in the movie, he's given the rock by his friend who was formerly tutoring them and got a lot of money from it, brings the rock over there, and then all of a sudden they start prospering.
Yeah.
But then they take the rock out. He almost takes the rock out to get the guy who's peeing on their windows down. But anyway, yeah, the fortune rock.
Well, it seems like, the prosperity or the pursuit of prosperity is like corrupting, right? Because everyone who gets it gets money, but they end up becoming corrupted and sort of everything starts to go to shit for them. Like to the point where, the young man who's kind of the main character and this whole scheme was his idea.
Right.
He gets hit over the head with it.
Yeah.
And is left bleeding out on the ground, right?
Yes.
Like their chase of wealth has come back to destroy him, quite literally, because it caves in his skull.
Yeah, I was gonna say pretty much the same thing, or like displacing the rock, because after they took the rock out of the thing to throw it at the guy, that's when all of a sudden shit started going downhill. And then like it's a good point, he gets literally bashed in the face with it, just to kind of like, this is where your fortunes change for the worse. Just to let you know, like, this is where it's all downhill from here.
And what's interesting is it happens at a point where he is trying to bring the rock down to the family in the basement to give to them as a gift.
Yep.
Right? It's like he wants them to have some good luck as well because he feels bad for them. But in the end, they take the rock and hit him on it, like, break his skull with it.
Well, and then to the note about compassion, the father is like, he feels bad for the family, or he feels bad for the people down there or whatever. And the wife is like, or the selfish sister is like, why do you care about them? Like, what good will caring about them do you? Like, just care about yourself. But all of the people who had compassion in the movie, the father, I guess the mother did, and then ultimately the son, he has a motive now for making a lot of money aside from just making a lot of money. They all live. Whereas the people who are selfish and insular about themselves, like the sister dies, Park dies, the head of the family, he ends up dying. I guess this isn't a really good metaphor because the housekeeper also dies. That by the way, that poor housekeeper, not only is she deathly allergic to peaches, like she's the character where all of the bad shit happens to her. She gets fired for faking TB, which was hilarious. And then she's like, they're like assaulting her with peach fuzz, so she can't breathe. And then she falls down the stairs and gets a concussion and is like puking her guts out, and then slowly dies from that just after letting her husband free. Like, she's able to cut the duct tape with just enough time and then dies. That poor woman.
I know. She definitely gets the worst of it in this movie.
Definitely. Although it's a close second to her husband, who's like just bashing his head against the lights.
Light to do Morse code.
Oh, man. Oh, God. The Indians, I thought that was hilarious too. It's like, oh, my son is very interested in American Indians, which is like, has nothing to do with America. They buy all of their products American because it's like, oh, it's really sturdy and good. It's American. Like, oh my God.
And it's funny because like South Korean products are probably just as good at this point.
At this point, they're probably just as good, yeah. Or half the people in America, like a lot of things that they'd be like, oh yeah, we should get this American. It's like, yeah, the equivalent in America is that it's the South Korean model. Like, everyone has Samsung televisions and stuff. So, oh man, but yeah, I really liked Parasite. It's the second Bong Joon-ho movie I've seen, and I really liked it. Yeah, I'll check out some of his other stuff.
Yeah, you should check out his other movies. I haven't seen a bad one. So is Parasite your movie of the year so far?
I have to look back over it. It's not my movie of the year, but it's probably close. It's probably up there. I'm still like, with all of John Wick 3's flaws, it still got me pumped, and I still saw it, 3 times in theaters. And then I still really enjoy Avengers Endgame with all of the problems that people have as a representation of comic book movies. I feel like the movie as a movie itself doesn't really stumble too much, because again, it's almost like they took 3 different movies, cut them to the quick, and then assembled them together, which is why the movie's 3 hours. It's a very tight movie. It falls into the problem of too much fan service, probably a little bit too far, especially this one, because they're going back in time and they're reliving all of these moments that they all get to comment on and things like that.
Remember that?
But it's just, I'm giving it, I like to also give it the benefit of the doubt because it's just clever enough.
If only they go back in time to when Tony Stark was a child and first saw Star Wars and comment on the magic of Star Wars. Then the circle will be complete.
They get pretty close. They actually go back in time so that they can have a John Slattery cameo. For a fan of the movies who have been watching them this far, it's a very satisfying ending point. It's kind of a shame that Spider-Man Far From Home came out so soon afterwards, but Sony's got to make their money.
It's a shame that movie came out.
No, it's not. Jake Gyllenhaal's great in that movie. You didn't see it, did you?
Tom Holland in it.
Well,
no.
Yeah, I know, but
Tom Holland is the British Timothée Chalamet.
I wouldn't go that far.
Well, I just did.
Because don't forget, Tom Holland was in Lost City of Z. Although I'm guessing he was your least favorite part of it.
That is correct.
But Jake Gyllenhaal, so you haven't seen Far From Home, right?
No, I have not seen
anything past Infinity War.
Well, I also have not seen any of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies because I refuse to.
You're better off not seeing them. It'll just make you mad. There's a moment in Homecoming that they ape off of the final chapter where Spider-Man has to lift up a bunch of stuff that's on top of him, and it's just like there are no stakes. So it's just like an empty scene where he just has to lift a bunch of stuff off of him or else he'll die. I was like, that was the lowest of the low in that movie. But in Far From Home, for half the movie, Jake Gyllenhaal is walking around in his Mysterio costume, which looks kind of like it's straight out of the comics. But then there's a big plot twist reveal that you probably can guess because it only happens halfway through the movie. And
that Mysterio is a bad guy?
Yeah, he's a former Stark employee. So
oh Jesus.
Oh, he's a former Stark employee who's like Tony Stark. He was an asshole, and so it's not just him; it's a whole group of Stark employees who hate Tony Stark.
So yeah, it's him, it's Michael Keaton, it's Aldrich Killian.
God, I wish it were Michael Keaton.
Iron Man 3. Wait, he's not a former Stark employee?
No, Michael Keaton's not in the movie at all.
No, but Michael Keaton's in the other Spider-Man.
Oh, no, he was a salvager. He didn't work for Stark. He was a salvager. And then the government took over salvaging the alien technology.
Oh, but I thought he did have some connection.
No, that was his
Stark.
It might have been that Stark Industries took over the salvaging part of it, as part of the Avengers Initiative thing. But Jake Gyllenhaal, his Mysterio costume for the second half of the movie is just him in a mocap suit with a dome on his head. It's the perfect nod to I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's the perfect outfit. And just imagining Jake Gyllenhaal full on being like, all I want to do is wear a mocap suit and run around and look goofy. He's having a lot of fun. Whether he's actually acting well is up for debate, but he looks like he's having a whole lot of fun, and I was too. So. And a movie that's almost completely unmemorable aside from that. So there's my review of Spider-Man Far From Home, a movie Gabe will never see, but just like The King, you just Google Jake Gyllenhaal Spider-Man Far From Home scenes so you don't see interviews. Do you have anything else to say about Parasite?
Not really. It's been a couple weeks since I saw it. I'm trying to think if there's any other cool bits and bobs. It's not my favorite Bong Joon-ho movie.
Which one is your favorite?
It's either Snowpiercer or Memories of Murder.
I
think Memories of Murder is his best.
Are those the 3 Bong Joon-ho movies you've seen? Or did you actually...
I've seen Snowpiercer, Memories of Murder, The Host,
that's right,
Okja, and Parasite. So Okja is probably his weakest, and it's still a good movie. Yeah. It's still a very good movie. The Host is right down there with Okja. Parasite's kind of in the middle. Snowpiercer is... It's so good. It's amazing. I love that movie. And then Memories of Murder is even better.
Okay. I'll see. I need to find a way to see Memories of Murder. I still haven't watched Okja. I'm like, yeah, I should. It's the giant creature movie. But
remember, it's Bong Joon-ho.
That's true. But just talk.
And Jake Gyllenhaal's in it. Oh, Jake Gyllenhaal in Okja. Now that is a performance because he plays one of the most bizarre characters I've ever seen him do. Him and Tilda Swinton play complete weirdos. Like Tilda Swinton has.
But Tilda Swinton
like
always
these
plays a
wacky,
complete weirdo.
Yeah, well, she has these wacky fake teeth and has like no, she has braces in the movie and like slurs and lisps the entire time. And then yeah, she has these big old braces. And then Jake Gyllenhaal is he's like this weird, like you know how like Animal Planet has a lot of those personalities. He's like he's like chronically depressed, mentally unstable, like Steve Irwin. Like he's like this borderline alcoholic, mentally ill guy who's the Animal Planet personality, and it's so funny. His character is so insane. And Paul Dano's in it, and he plays the leader of a pacifist animal rights terrorist group where like they do like animal rights centric vigilante activities, but they also like don't believe in harming anyone or anything. So they're like extra super duper gentle with everything that they do.
See, you're selling me on
really
it. I'm like,
good.
maybe I should watch that thing. If not tonight,
Yeah, it's good.
soon. Shit. I was thinking about Snowpiercer and how, because you were talking about like, yeah, all the American actors are like pretty nuts in the movie, and I was just thinking like, that's crazy for me to think about. But I love how the universal translator in Snowpiercer works, because he had the Korean father and daughter in that. And I was like, they had to wear the translator on there, and how the universal translator worked on that. So I will definitely check out Okja. I want to see Memories of, especially after you told me about Memories of Murder, definitely more interested in that as well.
Yeah. It's eerie how similar it is to David Fincher's Zodiac, actually, in a lot of ways. They got compared a lot, because I think they came out within a year or two of each other. And Zodiac is my favorite David Fincher movie.
Oh,
so
okay.
I guess it makes sense why
you like Memories of Murder
is my favorite Bong Joon-ho movie. Yeah.
Nice. My battery on my recorder is about to die. Yeah.
So that's it then, huh?
That's pretty much, that's where we're going to have to end this one, I think.
That's a shame.
I know. Well,
just as we were getting going.
2.5 hours later.
I know. You know, this podcast is about as long as The King, but I found it infinitely more entertaining.
We'll see how long it is after I take out a lot of the bleeps and the blips,
because the ums and uhs.
The long pauses in between our words or whatever.
Where we sit there silently waiting for someone to say something.
You know what? It'll still probably be just about as long as The King, and it'll definitely have more relevant information than The King. So.
Oh, seriously.
I think the moral of the story is The Lighthouse and Parasite, go see it. I got lucky. Parasite was wide released for me.
Really?
Yeah, it was.
Nice.
It hit wide release over here. So it's very possible that it'll start branching out a little bit more, probably for another week, and then it'll go into, the ether.
Yeah, well, I mean, that movie won the Golden Palm, so I wouldn't be surprised if they're putting their feelers out for a possible awards push.
It should. It should win. I haven't seen too many. It should win. I haven't seen any other foreign films this year, but it should win.
Well, I'm thinking, awards push not just for best foreign film, but into domestic categories, such as Best Picture. Well, because remember, Roma was nominated for Best Picture overall.
Yeah, I would say that Roma's different, though, because that movie's boring.
It's so boring. Oh, my God, I thought I was going to fall asleep. I mean, I appreciate Alfonso Cuarón. I appreciate what he does in his movies.
Yeah.
I don't like any of them.
Really? You don't like any of them?
Except for Harry Potter, because I like Harry Potter. And I saw it when I was a kid. And I read all the Harry Potter books as a kid. But yeah, like, I don't like Gravity. I don't like Roma. I didn't like Children of Men when I saw it. In all fairness, I saw Children of Men when it came out. So I was like 12. So I was probably too young, but I didn't like it. I tried to watch Y Tu Mama También and was also bored out of my mind. So,
well, you can't make a decision until you watch his version of Great Expectations with Ethan Hawke.
I've heard his adaptation of The Little Princess is actually really good.
Yeah, but I
have no interest in seeing it because I don't like any of his other movies.
I was going to say, if you don't like anything else he does, you're probably not. Because, I really like Children of Men. I think Gravity, as opposed to the behind-the-scenes drama of Gravity being more interesting, the behind-the-scenes making of how they put it together is more interesting in Gravity than the movie itself.
Well, yeah, because I heard like a lot of the technology they used to get those sweeping, spinning long takes took a lot of work and a lot of frustration to put together.
Not a lot of green screen, because they had to create giant LCD panels that projected space and how the space looked, so that they could get the correct lighting on their faces. And then they composited via CG all of the spacesuits and everything. So all of the tech that went into it is amazing, but the overall movie felt like a Metroid movie without any cool action scenes. So
it's a lady platformer.
It's a lazy lady platformer. I was like, this is how you can make it, because there's very little dialogue after George Clooney leaves, who's also the best part of the movie. Very little dialogue after he leaves. So,
dude, what if like Ridley showed up halfway into Gravity?
That would have been awesome. And
it actually was a Metroid.
She like all of a sudden she just throws the fire extinguisher at him, and like a Chozo comes over and it's like, take this, boom.
It's the grim, dark, gritty, realistic fucking Metroid.
They show two Chozos fucking, and like a Z-Bite like crawling into someone's eyeball. Like, this is real.
This is real. Take us seriously. That is, that whole like take comic book shit seriously is a trend that we will have to discuss sometime.
Oh my god, we
because
should.
Because I think people still feel guilty about about being an adult who watches Star Wars or who watches these Marvel movies. And I think to overcompensate for that guilt, they try to seek out, and I think movie companies try to make Star Wars movies or superhero movies that are like overly mature, but it's like a kid's idea of what mature is, when it's like, just don't feel guilty. And it's fine enjoying kids movies like Star Wars. Like, there's nothing wrong with liking it. You don't have to feel bad, and you don't have to overcompensate by making Superman an asshole and making Batman say, "Do you bleed? You will." That's not necessary.
I agree.
It's not necessary to enjoy those as a grown-up.
But my stance pivoted a long time ago, because I used to be like, yeah, comic books are mature, but I was young and stupid, and then I was like, well, why can't comic books just be fun? Like,
why can't comic books just be fun kid stuff?
Like, why do we need to like promote the fact that there's nudity in here? Like, if it serves the story, do it. If it doesn't serve the story, don't do it. We don't have to force elements in.
Yeah.
We don't.
Do you remember when DC Comics, like I think this was a year or maybe 2 years ago, they introduced like a new line of DC Comics where it's like hard R-rated, like you see Batman's dick or something. And it was like this huge deal. I'm like, DC is such a fucking joke now. Like, if that's what they're doing to try and drive up sales, it's like, buy this $5 magazine that's only 20 pages long and 10 pages of it are advertisements, so you can see Batman's wang.
Yeah.
Like,
on prestige paper.
They're so fucking desperate.
Bad.
Fuck that prestige paper. It's so bad.
We should definitely talk about it. I think though the problem is we're gonna have very similar points of view on it.
That's fine. We're saying things that need to be said, and that's what matters.
That's our. Hey, that's what you get with Under the Wheels. Hopefully.
I know. One last point on Cuarón. I know Iñárritu is really easy to make fun of because he is so fucking pretentious, but I like every single one of his movies that I've seen. Contrast to Cuarón, where I only like Harry Potter and The Prisoner of Azkaban.
Right. I mean, I would make the argument that Cuarón is even more pretentious than Iñárritu, or that they're pretentious in different ways. But
I think they're pretentious in different ways.
I haven't liked every single Iñárritu film I've seen, but then again, I really have only seen 2 of them. So
yeah, I mean, I've seen The Revenant, Amores Perros, and Birdman, and I like all 3. I think The Revenant is the weakest of that crop. And I think Amores Perros is amazing.
Yeah.
And Birdman is very good. It's a very good movie.
I've heard Babel's really good.
I've heard mixed things about Babel. I've also heard mixed things about 21 Grams.
Yeah.
And there's that other one with Javier Bardem that like nobody saw.
Beautiful.
Yeah, where he's like dying of cancer.
That's the movie that convinced Alfonso Cuarón that he had to completely change his filmmaking style.
What do you mean?
Well, like leading into it, he had the same editor, I think he still has the same editor. He still uses Stephen Murioni, but like he and the DP, like after Beautiful, he switched over to Chivo. And so like I feel like Beautiful was the movie where he completely pivoted his style. Instead of being, heavily editing focused, it's now very strongly camera movement, camera cinematography.
Wait, are you saying Iñárritu switched his style?
Yeah.
With Beautiful?
Yeah, Iñárritu.
Oh, you said Cuarón.
Oh, I'm sorry. Iñárritu switched his style after Beautiful.
Okay, gotcha. You wanted to become a discount Terrence Malick?
Yep, pretty much. Yeah. All of the Malik, less of the spinning. Or all of the camera movement, less of the spinning.
Yeah,
Mixed with...
and no wistful voiceovers.
Unfortunately. A little bit of it in The Revenant, but not enough.
But there's no, like, long shot of just the snow with some dude going like, why is man so cruel? Nature is so beautiful.
Tom Hardy, just like a push it on Tom Hardy's face, cut to like a sweep of the landscape as he's just like, and that's, what does it mean to feel the Revenant? It's like all of the...
But in his wacko, like, fake Texas accent that makes no sense. So he's like...
And then one of the voiceovers has to be in a completely different language because reasons.
Because reasons. Oh, if Tom Hardy's character had a voiceover in The Revenant,
it would have been better.
Would be amazing.
If
it would have been so, like, it would make no sense, but I would have been for it all the way.
I agree. Fuck DiCaprio and his kid. Fuck those guys. It's all about Tom Hardy and his pelts. That's all we need.
My pelts. Gotta get them pelts.
Look, I'm a realistic character. My life is over if I don't make these sales. Who's slowing me down? The guy who got mauled by a bear.
I know. The best part of that movie is when Tom Hardy is talking about how he saw God in the eyes of a squirrel.
As he like removes his hat with a giant gaping scar that he won't stop scratching. Fuck, dude. Tom Hardy's so fucking good, dude. He's so good.
Mm-hmm. I mean, DiCaprio, in all fairness, did a good job in that movie, but it's just so over the top and so very easily overshadowed by how good Tom Hardy is in that movie.
DiCaprio is just like so showy. He's like, let me show. He's like doing his best Sean Harris impression.
Boy.
He's doing his best Sean Harris impression. He's like,
Ethan, my boy.
What are the sins of our father coming? Like, no, DiCaprio, stop. Stop.
Leonardo DiCaprio should be the bad guy in the next Mission Impossible. And he should be forced to talk exactly like Sean Harris.
and put on the same glasses. This dies.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it.
While he's eating a steak that Robert Pattinson is making him fuck. Oh, Jesus.
If I had a steak, I'd fuck it. Best line of dialogue of 2019.
Hashtag Academy Award winner.
Oh, totally. That best screenplay, best actor, best supporting actor, best cinematography, best director, best picture, best
sound mix and sound editing.
Yes, all of them should go to The Lighthouse. And the makeup that they put on Willem Dafoe's teeth to make them look like ultra dirty.
Oh,
that can win best makeup.
That's not makeup. That's his teeth.
His teeth are just actually that fucked up.
Oh, there you go. Academy voters, Lighthouse for Best Picture, and put it in close competition with Parasite for Best Picture.
Yes, for your consideration, Lighthouse and Parasite
we offer this
for
podcast.
all of the awards.
Well, that's all I have.
That's all I got.
All right. Well, I guess we need to plug we should plug the blog.
Oh yeah.
So
we have a website.
We do.
That's a blog, and we post articles and other things. And Matt has some cool like technical analysis about different movies and stuff.
You should definitely go to it. underthewheels.wixsite.com/blog.
Yes. We also have a Facebook page where you can like us and get updated on whenever new shit is out. And it also has links to our website in case the URL is too annoying to type in.
Listen to you. You're selling this well. Don't forget to email us at underthewheelspodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing you. Rate us on iTunes. Give us good reviews or bad ones. We like to take people down.
And if you have any comments or suggestions or anything you want to hear about, let us know. And I don't know, maybe we could do if we get a critical mass of that stuff, we could do like a Q&A or something.
Definitely. I'm down. Please leave us comments.
I'm down. Yeah.
Well, my name is Matthew.
I'm Gabe.
And you've just been Under the Wheels.